else on tap with the injuries. We'll get to some of that on the show today. We'll get to some Big 12 conversation. It was a heart attack weekend for Big 12 fans, as some good Big 12 teams outright lost and some others had to just survive just to get by, namely K-State, OK State, some other schools as well. So we'll do some Big 12 football, get you ready for week 3 of college football from both a local and national standpoint here on the show today. After another very long extended break, our little old local soccer club is back at it coming up on Saturday against the Houston Dynamo because, of course, RSL has been ousted by Houston, I think, 3 straight tournaments. And it's been tough for Real Salt Lake to get any sort of result on the road down there, quite frankly, in the history of the club. So RSL back in action coming up this weekend as well. Tomorrow, kids, rookie camp opens for the Utah Hockey Club. That's right. They're about to hit the ice for real. And the first preseason game, I should say, is going to be on the 22nd against the St. Louis Blues. Then October the 8th, the Chicago Blackhawks are in town. So hockey's right around the corner. Adam Silver gave a press conference today. You probably did not even know about that. There's nothing you need to know about it. It's a quiet time on the NBA calendars. We're kind of awaiting the start of training camp. So a lot to do on this Tuesday. Really good guest list for you guys, starting off with Josh Furlong, who covers the University of Utah. For our good friends over at KSL, Josh right out of the gates. And then the day after the Niners undressed the Jets, I'm going to have to deal with Ben Solak. Our guy, Ben Solak, now over at ESPN. We have watched this young man grow up the ranks, and now he's landed in a really, really exciting spot for his career. So excited to catch up with Ben today. Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, live in studio. Our friends from Advanced Window Products. Has Nate seen enough from either Connor O'Toole or Van Fillinger to believe that maybe his record as the single-season sack leader for Utah football is in jeopardy? Get to some of that on the show today. Then it's Scott Mitchell at 4 o'clock to break down some Utah football. And Dave Fox at 4:30. I'm told Dave Fox is live in studio, so hopefully the paparazzi will not gather downtown for 2 Emmys, 2 Pelotons. Dave Fox on the show. Josh Furlong, Ben Solak, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, Scott Mitchell, Dave Fox, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. And that guy, Porter Larson. You know, I was thinking after we were texting last night, you have way more to be excited about as a Cowboys fan than I do as a Jets fan this year.
Well, this is true. This is usually true. But the thing is usually as a Cowboys fan, there is plenty to be excited about in September and in October. Is that usually the case in January and February? No. So I'm optimistic. They look good. They got the contract stuff figured out, but yeah, they're what they were last year and kind of the year before that, and so we'll see if it pays off in the postseason. Your Jets, though, dare I say, Spence, a little bit of life with Tyrod in there at quarterback.
I like Tyrod Taylor. I always have.
I just have to throw that in.
I like him. I always have. But my deal is like everyone today is like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is old. I'm like, oh, really? Thank you. Oh, he doesn't move well. Yeah, he's 40. He just tore his Achilles. What's up with the defense? That's supposed to be the thing. That's why you hired Robert Saleh. That's why you spent all your draft capital on this great defense. And San Fran's without the best offensive player in the NFL. It didn't matter a lick.
Yeah, the Jets were the betting favorite in the AFC East coming into the season. I didn't know why, but if there was any reason, Spence, it was because of their defense. It was supposed to be a season where all you had to do was be better than the quarterback situation last year. Shout out to our guy Z-Dub and others. All you had to do was be better than that, and the Jets were expected to be a contender in that division. I don't know that that's the case. I think they need good quarterback play as well as that defense stepping it up, and I don't know that I really see that.
Yep, fair enough. So week 1 of the NFL in the books with a drubbing of the Jets by the Niners on Monday Night Football, which you heard right here on ESPN 700. All right, our first guest right out of the gates, Josh Furlong from KSL, covers the Utes. Before we get to Josh, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too, at Beer Bar right downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. All your sports watching needs, head over to Beer Bar. It's time now for your opening tip. High speed ahead now to week 3 of college football, week 2 of the NFL on our show. If you guys have listened for a while, first of all, thank you. Hello, how are you? Second of all, you know the Tuesday is kind of the day we put the weekend behind us officially and start to look ahead to what we'll potentially see coming up this weekend in the world of college and pro football. So we'll do a little local and national college football here. BYU, according to their head coach, Kalani Sitake, is headed to Laramie without Hinckley Rapati or LJ Martin. They're not going to be available. That's as of today. He called them doubtful. So an interesting wrinkle there. Wyoming's not good. BYU, even without their 2 running backs, even without, the potential of having their first-line guys running the football, they're still a 10.5-point favorite. The over-under in Laramie is 40.5. I don't think this should be very much of an issue for BYU, even without these 2 running backs. They have depth in that room. And the win that BYU had on the road against SMU, as we've talked about on this show, I think it's bigger than most people really are talking about as a result of what they would have had to do if they lost that game, which is go on the road to Laramie, get Wyoming, then find 4 conference wins. And I don't think BYU has 4 conference wins on the schedule. I just don't. I do think they have 3 potentially, and that's why I picked them to win 6 games. I think they go to Laramie on Saturday. And I think they handle their business, even without their top 2 running backs, and that's kind of the main storyline coming out of Provo this week, in addition to a kind of grumpy Kalani talking about Jake Retzlaff's tendency to turn the football over. He didn't call Jake out by name, but what we saw against SMU, again, from Jake Retzlaff, was careless mistake play under center, which is what killed him last year in the 4 starts that we saw with Jake. So he had his 6th fumble in 4 games now. Excuse me, his 4th fumble in 6 games, 2 more INTs. I think that's 9 turnovers in 6 games started now from Jake Retzlaff, the 4 last year and 2 this year. Way too many, but they get out of Dodge and they escape. So BYU headed up to Laramie. Now, prior to that game, up in Logan, for the first time in 12 years, the University of Utah finds themselves up in Logan to play Utah State. I am not reporting this. I want to be very clear. I was just told today that Isaac Wilson is taking more reps with the ones this week than he has prior to. Okay, and so just like if you're BYU, you want your backup running backs to go up against the ones in practice prior to Wyoming. If you're Utah football, Isaac simply needs more reps with the ones so we can kind of see what sort of hand we've been dealt leading up to the game in Logan coming up. Now, I don't anticipate, just like I said with BYU and Wyoming, I don't think Utah's going to have a problem with Utah State. I really don't. But these in-state games, they get weird. 12 years ago, Coach Witt talked about this during his media availability on Monday. Utah went up to Logan. They lost. There are a lot of players that play for Utah State that probably feel like they should have received a look from Utah and would have liked to maybe play down here. And that always breeds some sort of motivation to bring maybe something different juxtaposed to a different opponent if you're playing against an in-state school that you would have loved to maybe play for. So they'll be motivated. It's been such a crazy, chaotic 5 or 6 months up in Logan. I really did not know what to expect. And look, if we call it how it is, Utah State trailed to Robert Morris at halftime before utilizing a second-half comeback to get that win. And if you watched any of the Utah State-USC game, that was not even a fair fight. Utah should win this game, whether it's Isaac Wilson, whether it's Cameron Rising, whoever's under center. It should not be germane to the outcome. This is something where Utah should certainly handle their business. But interesting to consider both BYU and Utah on the road against opponents that they're going to be double-digit favors over, yet injury issues, just to different positions. BYU potentially without their top 2 running backs, Utah potentially without their QB1, as week 3 of college football is going to be upon us coming up. There is a Friday night game this week that is a big, big game if you're interested in following the biorhythms of the Big 12. It's 6 o'clock Friday night. It's on Fox. Arizona is in Manhattan to take on K-State. Kansas State is a 7-point favorite. Both of these two teams have stayed clean so far, but it has not looked great. And K-State and Arizona thought to be 2 of maybe the 6 or 7 teams that actually have a chance to win it. So interesting to see how that goes down. And a lot of really exciting matchups on paper this week, compared to what we saw in week 2 when it turned out to be some really fun games and some fun upsets. But on paper, prior to that slate, it didn't look like it was going to be great. The Big 12 week actually starts on Thursday. Arizona State, we might need to start talking about them a little bit differently. They're 2-0. They're on the road at Texas State. They should probably handle that business. That's kind of a sneaky game, though. They should probably handle their business. Kansas welcomes in UNLV after their road loss to the Illini at Illinois. OK State, again, they've stayed clean. They needed overtime to take care of Arkansas. They're on the road against Tulsa. Cincinnati's taking on Miami of Ohio. North Texas, Texas Tech. West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Air Force, Baylor. Colorado, Colorado State. This time in Fort Collins. It was in Boulder last year. You remember that crazy game that everybody watched. And then another sneaky game coming up at 5:30 on Saturday. Two teams that I don't think are getting enough love as far as conversations to maybe win this conference. It's UCF at TCU, at Ammon Carter down in Fort Worth. And then the final game, no one gives a rip. It's Rice and Houston. So week 3 of college football is right around the corner. And, of course, week 2 of the NFL gets rolling on Thursday night with a little Bills-Dolphins action. So football is here, high speed ahead to the weekend, even though it's only Tuesday. All right, want to tell you about my good friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. They've got a special going on right now. So if you hit on 2 of your picks, you win money. And what they have going on right now is 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win. So you're halfway home to the money. So 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every September. Don't miss this deal because it's gone when September ends. It's a free dub, so check it out. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 and you get $50 off instantly when you play $5. That's promo code ESPN700 on Prize Picks to get $50 off, to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, starting things off on a Tuesday is Josh Furlong, who joins us next right here on ESPN 700. Going to bring in Ben Solak today. Talk a little NFL now that week one is in the books with a little Monday Night Football. Niners just embarrassed my Jets, which I was expecting. Also have Nate Orchard, Jake Weber in studio, Scott Mitchell, and Dave Fox. So we have a busy show. But on a Tuesday, we'll start things off with one of our favorites. Josh Furlong covers the Utes for KSL. Josh, happy Tuesday, man. How we doing?
Happy Tuesday. Good to be here. Doing well. How about you?
I'm good, bud. Appreciate the time today. So I'm not reporting anything, I want to be clear, but I was told this morning by somebody who would know that Isaac Wilson is going to start taking reps with the ones this week. I don't think that should shock anybody. But do you have any insight on the current quarterback situation at the University of Utah and what we'll see in Logan on Saturday?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing as you. And, I've heard that, it's obviously not as bad as everybody was initially thinking for Cam. But the issue is, there's obvious swelling that comes with a hand injury. There's problems that way. And so that Kyle talks about. But yeah, I mean, you have to go into this game just kind of preparing yourself, knowing that this is Isaac Wilson's first start, right? And if something changes in the week later, that's great. But you have to be prepared for a new quarterback under center, and hope that the swelling and other aspects of Cam's hand go down, and that he's able to handle this well. So. Look, I don't know if this is a long-term injury by any means, but with hand injuries and finger injuries, it's actually much more complicated than it would appear. So it's not as simple as an answer as, just go out there and throw the ball. I mean, this is his throwing hand. This is not going to be an easy situation, but I don't think it's going to be something long-term by any means.
So let's stick with in the moment, here and now in a vacuum, Utah State on Saturday, Josh, and let's operate off the hypothetical that it is Isaac and not Cameron. I don't think I'm out of turn by saying if Isaac Wilson's your QB2, it has to look a lot better than it did on Saturday against Baylor. To do anything important in conference, I don't know that I feel that way on Saturday, all due respect to Utah State. But if we operate off the premise that it's Isaac, not Cameron, what do you think the offense looks like Saturday up in Logan?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit more of a run game, a run first game, I should say. But they have to take their shots, right? If Utah's just going to be reliant on running the ball, that's not going to necessarily go well for Utah. It can work. Obviously, Utah's done that for years in a lot of ways, so it's not like it can't be done. We want to see more in the run game, and so there's some questions there. But I think you're going to see a team that's going to be willing to take their shots, right? Obviously, Utah State can do a lot. Their defense isn't just something that you can just glance over and say nothing's going to happen. But they need to give Isaac some opportunities to be able to move the ball, right? Maybe it's a couple short routes to be able to kind of get his confidence going, and then you start exploiting it a little bit more. Maybe you start getting more deep shots. The thing with Isaac is he's not going to be afraid to take the shots, right? So it's not like last year where, Bryson or Nate comes into the game and, if they didn't get their initial reads, they're essentially done. This is a guy that's going to go through his progressions. It's still not going to be easy for him. He's going to go through his progressions, and he's going to go in there and he's going to take his shot. So maybe that's a high risk, high reward sometimes as a freshman. But I think you're going to see a game plan that isn't going to be as vanilla as it's been within the last two games. I think there's going to be a lot more takeaway from that he's going to be able to showcase his talent, and we'll get a better look. I still don't know if this will be an indictment on who Wilson is, right? It's his second officially full game and different things that way. So it's not easy for a freshman to do it, but I think giving him the full reps throughout the week will definitely help that if he's the guy. And you'll see a little bit more of a better game plan than what we've seen with him when he's gone out there the last two games.
Yeah, certainly observation, not conclusion for young Isaac Wilson. He enrolled in school in April. He's 18 years old. And I don't want to start anything, and I'm not trying to. I wonder, as for somebody like you that has a lot of insight into the program, because like I said, if Utah is going to do anything special in conference play, number one, Cam has to be under center. But if he's not, it has to look better than it did on Saturday when he was on the sideline. Do you have any frame of reference for just how big of a gap there is between Isaac and Brandon and Sam and if there's any sort of conversation about trying to get the other guys involved, because we all remember last year, Josh, we all remember last year. Is it definitively, well, we know it's Cam 1, but then is it Isaac 2 and then big gap between the other two? Or is there a conversation to be had that should Cameron have to miss extended time, maybe we look at something different based on how it's looked so far when Cam's been hurt?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, and that's all I can go off of, it is a fairly sizable gap. How large that is, I don't know. I just think you're seeing a guy in Brandon Rose that, yes, he's been in the system. He understands the playbook, at least in theory, but he's not able to execute it to the level that they need him to, right? It's kind of similar to what I was saying with Bryson and Nate. You know, you get your first read, and if you can't get that first read, then he can't get what he needs to do. And if he's doing that in practice, that's not going to go. It's not going to bode well in game. With Sam, it's been a little more quiet on him. I think a lot of it is really just coming down to the playbook and trying to understand that. But at the end of the day, it really is there is quite that gap between Isaac and the rest. And in fall camp, I had heard that Isaac was even pushing Cam, where he was kind of on par with what he was able to do. Now you say that and you hear that, and it has to translate to the field, right? But that's the next level of where Isaac's at, right? He's got to be able to take what he's doing in practice and kind of replicate that in the game. And that's going to be a process. It's not even just a this year process. It's going to take some time. That's what it takes for freshmen to be able to get in there. But I think there really is a gap. That's why Kyle Whittingham is so definitive on Isaac, right? They're not turning away from him by any means. They understand that this is who they've got. If they had to go to those other two, they would. But it's not going to be one of those things where Isaac should be looking over his shoulder and saying, I got to be careful. I'm going to get pulled. I just think that they would have to take Isaac getting hurt as well for them to really get into the game. So, I know fans really want to get into Brandon Rose. He's kind of the most popular guy right now because they haven't seen a ton of production from Isaac. But the reality is Isaac is your best player to get you going. And I'm curious to see what it looks like with the game plan around him, seeing what he's able to do when he gets all those reps, because he's just been put in uncomfortable and tough situations. And once again, like you said, he's 18. This isn't an easy spot. And I think people don't understand how hard it is to transfer that skill level from a high school to college. There's very few quarterbacks that can go in that freshman year and can compete at a high level. It takes some time, and especially in Andy Ludwig's offense, it takes some time. But Isaac's going to do it. He's humble. He's committed. He gets into that film room. He's going to do everything he can to be able to be ready. It may not be what we think his ceiling can be, but he's absolutely going to put his best foot forward and do what he can.
So I went down to watch the fourth quarter on the field after watching the first three up top. I wanted to see if I could get anything on Cam, see if I could, get a feel down there. And, Josh, I can tell you on that sideline, whether it was the team or the crowd, there was this underlying anxiety after Baylor scored and the Utah offense was stalling. And, look, it was 23-0, and so they had enough of a cushion to survive a little bit of a run from the Bears. They scored 12, and then they put 12 on the board, so it's 23-12 with plenty of time left. I don't know that I ever felt like they were going to lose, but certainly for a minute there, after another punt, another 3-and-out, and Baylor starting to find some success on the ground, not a ton, but enough to make people a little bit nervous. It did feel like this could get weird because college football every weekend gets weird. That's why we love it. It's so unpredictable. Crazy upsets happen every week. Ask Notre Dame. And several Big 12 teams had to get the hell out of Dodge and survive, like OK State, like Kansas State. Kansas lost. I mean, every weekend things get loose. Did you have any moments on Saturday where you felt like, man, this thing might get away from them? They might lose to Baylor without Cam under center.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there was ever really any doubt or fear that was going to be the case. I think maybe that could have changed if Utah didn't have that 7-minute drive that they grounded out and really stalled the clock. But I mean, if they win another 3-and-out there, then maybe you have to question, and Andy Ludwig has to open up the playbook a little bit. But that defense was absolutely doing whatever it needed to stop him. And yeah, there was occasional runs, and I think on the other side of the ball, Perene Reed going out with an injury was probably on par with Cam. I know it's not quite the same level, right? But I think when you lose the guy that's kind of orchestrating the defense and kind of helping how that goes, he's a big player in that system that he almost doesn't even get talked about just because it's such a well-oiled machine. that I think once he got injured and he went out, things kind of broke down a little bit and there was some mistakes. Now, that's going to happen. Things are going to be there. This defense is more than capable to play without Karene Reed. But I think you saw some of that where it was just like a combination of everything. The defense was still playing tough. I don't think there really was any worry. But like I said, if that 7-minute drive didn't really go as well as planned, then maybe there was some worry. But I think just the total vibe of that game was that Utah had everything going, and they're always going to stay in a game with its defense, especially against a quarterback that just honestly wasn't able to get anything going against Utah.
Yeah, DeQuan Finn, and I don't want to go too hard on the kid because I do think it was the Utes that just made him see ghosts after that opening, couple of opening drives, 3 and out, then the fumble, and he just didn't look comfortable all game long. There's no doubt about that. But I'm glad you brought up Karene because that actually happened when I was down there. When I walked down, I saw him walk by with a trainer. He was limping, and I said, "Okay, man, that's not good." Any insight on the update there, and any other health updates that you have at your disposal prior to Utah State on Saturday?
Yeah, it sounds like Karene did something with his ankle, as we saw. I mean, I don't think there was anything shocking from that. My understanding is that he, is probably going to be held out from this game, just from what I've heard, just as more of a precaution. You want to keep him ready for conference play, but he absolutely could play, I believe. Tape up that ankle enough, and you're probably fine. But I think they feel confident in what they have, that they can come out there and not have him on the field. Outside of that, there's some dings, right? Mike Mitchell is suffering with an ankle injury. I talked to him yesterday, and he said that was probably the most pain he's ever felt in his entire life. He said his ankle kind of popped out a little bit, but he got back in there, taped up, and was ready to go. And he's fired up to continue to go. So I think you're going to have some of those types of things where you're going to have some injuries. You're going to have guys that maybe are held out on a series or held out for a game or whatever it may be. But so far, there hasn't been any real serious injuries outside of the Kenan Johnson injury. So Utah is safe in terms of health right now. Obviously, there's things that need to continue to improve, especially with Cam. But right now, this is a far better situation than what Utah was facing last year. And last year when we were on on this conversation, we were detailing all the injuries that were going on. We're not quite to that level yet. So everything is good in that front. And you have to hope that for their sake that everything stays that way.
So let's dig into the running back room and let's try to figure out what we may see on Saturday. So if you're just joining us, welcome in. Both Josh and I are under the impression that Isaac Wilson is receiving reps with the ones this week in a way that he hasn't prior to. You can draw your own conclusions there. And so this conversation is kind of operating along the lines of Isaac being under center on Saturday against Utah State, which means, Josh, as you know, there's going to be a healthy dose of running the football. Kyle likes that anyway. So Mekhi Bernard, who we all have been under the understanding that he is the number one guy, showed against Baylor that he is, if there's anything close to a bell cow, it's clearly Mekhi. Dijon had a great week 1. He only had 3 carries. You referenced Mike's injury. So there's Charlie Vincent. We could keep going. If we operate off the premise that Utah is going to go heavy on the run game on Saturday, what do you think that distribution looks like in the running back room?
Yeah, I think Mekhi still gets the majority of those reps, right? I think, like you said, with Kyle all but saying that Mekhi is RB1, that's kind of how it's shaking up to be, right? I think you'll see him in a lot of those scenarios where he's able to kind of make the plays that you would consider to be the every down back. But they're going to sprinkle in some of these other guys, right? Like you're going to put out there Mike Mitchell. He's ready to go. He's active. He's willing, barring health, to be able to go out there. But I think this is the type of game where you could absolutely utilize Dijon Stanley as well. They're going to have tape on him. They're going to understand what he's going to do. But I love what Andy Ludwig did on Saturday, where he was able to scheme in some ways against Dijon Stanley, right? Use him in a way where he becomes a decoy, and you saw in that fake reverse where it opens up somebody like Money Parks, who is also another fast guy, get him off the edge and get him into space, and he's gone. This is a great system for Ludwig to be able to operate in, where you can have your everyday down back where Mackay comes in there and does what he needs to do. But you've got so much creativity with what Dijon can do. You've got a physical bruiser in what Mike Mitchell can do. And, I'm curious to see if Jalen Glover gets in there. I personally don't know what the situation is going on right there. It's been a quiet one. But it's one where you have to like what you have in this running back room against what Utah State's able to do. And, if they can get that going, I think Utah's going to be fine. That puts some comfort in Isaac if he's able to be out there. If you can get a good run game going, they have to respect that, and then you can start passing a little bit more, get Brant Keithy, some other guys open. So I think this game especially is really going to be reliant on that, and if they can get that going with these guys that they have, I think they're going to be okay.
Let's revisit a conversation we had a few weeks back, and I always try to identify, one or two names on the defensive side of the football, because it does seem like every year there is that guy that emerges, whether it's Eric Weddle or Clark Phillips or Devin Lloyd. We could keep going. Haven't heard much from Lander Barton yet. A lot of people thought he would be the guy that causes the havoc plays that create great things for the team. I'm sure we'll hear from him at some point. It feels like it might be Connor this year, Josh. It feels like it might be Connor O'Toole after only 2 games. Obviously, a couple of sacks, the big sack to force the fumble. There are probably some other options as well. Teo Johnson gets the touchdown. Van's been great. I still think Lander at some point will emerge as one of these dudes, but who, in your mind, or a couple of names on the defensive side of the football through 2 games has emerged as that dynamite playmaker that causes havoc?
Yeah, I'd go with 3 names. One you mentioned, Connor O'Toole. Well, 2 you mentioned. Connor O'Toole is obviously the guy that kind of leads that group, and he's going to create a ton of havoc plays, in the backfield. But I've been really impressed with Van Fillinger. I think, a few weeks ago you asked me who was going to be the sack leader, and I hedged it a little bit, right, because we didn't know, and there's 3 great guys in that room that can do it. But I'm starting to lean more to a guy like Van Fillinger. He looks healthy. He's playing with incredible amount of havoc. He's trying to disrupt a ton of what that line is doing. He's been in there. But I'm going to go with third guy that nobody's talked about, and that is Zamaya Vaughn. And the reason I'm saying that is because nobody's throwing his direction because of how good he's being. He's maybe not like a Jalen Johnson or a Clark Phillips, but he's gaining that respect in terms of you're not going to even throw in his direction because he's got it locked down. And so I think if you can have a guy like that on the field, that absolutely does a lot for you in the sense that you can just really work with half of the field. You've got that. Now you've got Connor O'Toole, you've got Van Fillinger, you got Logan Fano, and these other guys on the D line that are going to crash that and really put the pressure. You're really taking a ton of options away. You put Teo Johnson as that free safety, you get him looking in there, helping with Elijah Davis, Cam Calhoun, all these guys, and it really becomes a tricky system to kind of work with. Where do you pick your poisons, right? Like, where do you go? And I think all of those things kind of complement each other in a way that works. So those 3 are probably the 3 that I'm looking at right now as kind of the standouts. But, I mean, going through that, you could probably list a whole bunch of guys. Smith Snowden's been doing phenomenal. Teo, obviously. So this is just a defense that just has a ton of talent, and I think we could pick a different person every single game.
All right, Josh, before I set you loose, as I referenced, and as you know as well as anyone, college football, week in and week out, the most unpredictable sport that we have. And upsets happen every week. Even chaotic, crazy upsets happen every week. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the Josh Furlong concern about Utah heading up to Logan for the first time in 12 years?
Ooh, the concern, I don't know that it's super high. I think it's a little more raised in the sense that if it is Isaac, you don't know what you're going to get. But I think this is a completely different team than what Utah had in 2012 when they went up there and lost. They've got a lot more depth. They've got a lot more talent. That's not to say that Utah State can't get a win. I think, it's tough to play up there in Logan, and they're going to be fired up. They want to be able to get this win as much as anybody. But I'm not too concerned about this one. I think Utah wins this comfortably. I think there's just too many flaws on Utah State that Utah can exploit that allows them to really kind of run away from this. But look, I wouldn't be surprised if this is close, right? I think these are those types of games that they can give you a scare. it kind of wakes you up a little bit and gets you ready. And you have to hope that Utah isn't overlooking Utah State to get to Oklahoma State. But yeah, I think this would be relatively low on there, a little higher than if Cam was starting. But I think this is where Utah is going to be fine.
All right, Josh, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy your week, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks for the time, man.
Sounds great, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Josh Furlong covers the Utes for KSL. It's another game week for Utah football. This time it's up in Logan for the first time in 12 years. Utah makes the trip up north to take on the Aggies. Utah is a healthy 20.5-point favorite as we sit here today. Football, Ben Solak from ESPN stops by to recap week one and preview week I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to ignore your song selection. I'm going to ignore what you're trying to do. I'm going to ignore you trying to rub it in all day. I don't care. It's 1 week. I'm on to week 2.
I'm not even really trying to jab. It's just about our guy Benny on the line.
All right. Well, it's also about the Jets. And once again, it was embarrassing. Ben Solak, our guy from ESPN, he's all grows up, as I like to say about Ben. Ben, I've got to say, man, you joined us preseason. You told me to feel good about my Jets. And after week 1, I don't feel great. What were your takeaways from Monday Night Football last night?
My takeaways are that the San Francisco 49ers are very good. And we knew they were very good, and we should expect them to be very good. And I think that the upcoming opponents for the Jets will hopefully be a little bit easier. The two things that did concern me with New York's performance were, one, the issues the defense had against the running game. I think that when Christian McCaffrey goes out and Jordan Mason goes in, perhaps in the meeting room you start saying, all right, we're going to dedicate more resources to the passing game. And they certainly kept Brock Purdy slowed down for much of that first half. I think they performed great against that Niners passing attack, but you can't do it at the expense of 8 yards a pop to Jordan Mason. And so I think that defensive line got a lot thinner, right? We talked about this offseason, the departure of John Franklin Myers, the departure of Bryce Huff, and now the absence of Hassan Reddick. You kind of see how weak that unit is. So that was worrisome to me. And then on the other side, it was the inability to get the running game going against what is a 49ers run defense that was really bad last season. I thought this improved offensive line was going to help them stay ahead of the sticks a lot more successfully than they did last night. And so trench work to be improved on, I think, for the Jets. But I'm not sounding alarm bells just yet. Rodgers tends to look really bad in week 1s because he doesn't really play in the preseason at all. I think that passing game will steady out. It's just the trenches that I want to see get better.
Yeah, he does always look bad in week 1. Now, last year, of course, was an exception. He played 4 snaps. But, look, he's 40 years old coming off an Achilles bend. He's not going to be Mike Vick. But, man, it just looked like he could not move. And maybe we should not be surprised by that. So, week 1 aside, what's reasonable expectations for Aaron under center for the Jets all year?
Yeah, so Next Gen Stats does a cool thing where they track how much a quarterback moves on every drop back. And Aaron Rodgers moved on average last night 4.1 yards, which is a bottom 10 number for a game in his career since 2016, which is when NGS started collecting the tracking data. All the games that were shallower, right, all the games that he moved even less were in the 21 or 22 seasons, right? So as he's been getting older, he has already started playing this way, where he just does not reset in the pocket as much, does not scramble outside of the pocket as much, does not make as many throw on the move, right? And so the Achilles injury is absolutely part of it, and getting older is also part of it. But it's important to realize that he was this player in Green Bay already a little bit when they acquired him, right? He was going to be more of a pocket passer than we're used to seeing Aaron Rodgers being, more of a quick distribution, dink and dunk sort of player than we're used to Aaron Rodgers being. The theory is the same theory about late career Peyton Manning when he was with the Broncos, and late career Drew Brees in his final seasons with the Saints, where, okay, the arm strength is starting to go and the mobility is limited, but we think this guy is so smart, and we think he's so good at the line of scrimmage, and we think he's such an accurate passer of the football that we'll be able to make it up in the interim. And I still have confidence that the Jets can do that. The question is just how effective will it be when you really only have one good pass-catching weapon right now in Garrett Wilson, when you have an offensive coordinator in Nathaniel Hackett, who hasn't really impressed in his time in the league. And so I think that Rodgers' lack of mobility was anticipatable and is workable. It's just, are the other pieces going to fall in place to make that happen?
To your point about the Niners, and we talked about this because you joined us after the Vegas odds dropped right away. Vegas tells us it's Kansas City at San Francisco, and then there's a big gap between everybody else. But I wondered, Ben, what your take was on the whole Mason injury report thing, where kind of felt bad for the kid. You know, apparently he told a reporter that he was named the starter on Friday, and the reporter asked Coach Shanahan post-game. He said, I didn't say that. And then I believe I saw a clip that Mason was asked about it again today, and it looked like the poor guy just wanted to run and hide. Help us understand what happened here, and could San Fran be in some trouble from the league based off of how the reporting kind of went down?
Yeah, so if the 49ers knew they were going to rule Christian McCaffrey out for this game on Monday night, on Friday, then they are mandated to report that to the league. Now, I'm going to blow your mind here, Spence. A lot of teams know they're going to not play a guy on a Sunday and list him as questionable on a Friday and then call him a game-time decision, right? This is pretty standard stuff. You can't really prove that the teams did the gamesmanship. You can't, prove that, maybe he could have been a game-time decision. Mason, who obviously has spent a lot less time in front of NFL microphones than starters, who's been, injury report, a starter, a lot less than these other guys, in just his elation, in his joy for having a career debut night on Monday Night Football at the home crowd against the New York Jets. When he was asked, when did you find out you were going to start, said, I found out on Friday. Now, what the Niners will say is that we told him, if McCaffrey can't go, you're getting the start. And what Mason will say is, yeah, that's what they told me. I just misunderstood the question. And I don't think if the NFL comes down with anything punitive, if anything, maybe a slap on the wrist. I think that's kind of where the dust will settle here. But in general, this is just typical injury report gamesmanship, of which the league is cognizant, has always been cognizant, and lets most non-egregious stuff slide under the radar. The only reason our visibility on this is increasing, Spence, to be honest, is because of how much gambling has become a part of the natural NFL landscape now. Because people bet on Christian McCaffrey to do X, Y, and Z, and people have their anytime touchdown score or 11-leg parlays, and they feel cheated, and they feel spurned when a player that they thought they were going to be able to wager money on, or they already had wager money on, suddenly is out for the game, and it turns out he would have been out for the game 3 days ago as well. And so I don't think this is too much new. I think it was a PR flub that Mason will get chastised for internally by the Niners, and maybe there'll be some sort of perfunctory punishment from the league. But the reason why we're talking about this stuff more often, I think you're seeing it more on social, is because people get more upset from a gambling and fantasy perspective than they ever had.
Yeah, well said. I want to ask you about two debuts, rookie quarterbacks, both with some ties around here for different reasons. We saw Utah football go up against Caleb Williams and Bo Nix multiple times in the Pac-12, and Bo Nix is the quarterback of the team that folks around here seem to gravitate towards, and that is the Denver Broncos. Not great, right, Ben, for either, but of course they're rookies. It's week one. What's your reaction from those two?
Yeah, both of them looked like rookies. Both of them, the game was moving real fast for Caleb Williams. Game was moving real fast for Bo Nix. Now, for Caleb, that means a lot of 4-second drop backs, scrambling hither and thither, taking bad sacks. When he saw throws open, he tried to whip that ball in there so quickly, it was breaking the sound barrier on some of these throws. That's making it too hard on your receivers, right? Keenan Allen doesn't need to try to catch a laser beam here. You can just throw to him in rhythm. And so a lot of rookie mistakes from Caleb. I think the sort of stuff that you expect to get ironed out, not next week, but over the course of the first month. And this is why you want to get that rookie, that starting experience, because you kind of need him to get up to NFL speed. And the only thing that can do it for him is game reps. So that's Caleb. For Bo, when it's rookie overwhelmingness for Bo, right? It's not the long drop backs and the bad sacks and the running around behind line of scrimmage, but rather he's just kind of late to all of his throws, right? Bo is billed as a processor and a guy who gets the ball to the right player, and he'll throw the check down early in the down and let the running back pick up yardage for him, let the tight end pick up yardage for him. But when you're late to everything, when you're a half second behind the defense, now it's just Seahawks linebackers screaming downfield and safeties screaming down. They're making big tackles and they're making big hits. And when you have to push the ball down the field, you start to get interceptions, right? They're closing those throwing windows. And so Bo is always going to be a distribution passer, right? Kind of more of a point guard, a quarterback, and he's going to be a big play quarterback. And in order to survive that way, you have to be one step ahead of the defense. And he just wasn't on Sunday. I don't think he will be for a bit, but just like Caleb, I'm confident that he can get up to NFL speed. Coaching staff will help him out, and they'll have to rely on the running game in the meantime.
Let's move over to Steelers-Falcons, which was not an awesome watch for anyone. But Russell Wilson, a late scratch, so Justin Fields gets the start, and the Steelers went on the road. So I want your thoughts on the Steelers and that quarterback situation. Do you think Fields keeps the job? Do you think Russ gets in when he's healthy? And then if Aaron Rodgers looks slow, Kirk Cousins looked like he's still in a walking boot. My man could not move at all. So give me your thoughts on that game, the quarterback situations on both teams.
I think the Steelers quarterback situation will truly and earnestly be 1 week at a time at this point, right? I think that we're probably at a point with Russ's injury where he could have gone on Sunday, if they really needed him to. But because they have the other guy and they're interested in seeing what he looks like, they gave Justin that game. And then Fields was far from amazing in that game, but he was running the football and he hit a couple of explosive plays and he got them into scoring drives. And, if they're a little bit better in third down and situational bowls, they probably put a couple touchdowns up. It was a good performance. It was a fine performance. And so he's earned week 2, right? And I think that he'll play week 2. And they'll say, okay, Russ has still come back from the calf. He's just not 100% yet. We don't want to rush him. And then they'll see what Fields does in week 2, and then they'll make a week 3 decision, right? And I think that for the next few weeks, you'll see that kind of go week by week. And certainly if Fields strings together 4 or 5 solid games, then he'll probably get himself a little bit of a leash. But for right now, while they have this quote unquote, nagging, lingering Russell Wilson calf injury, they'll kind of use this to go week by week. And if it feels bad, then they'll yank him for Russ. So that's my expectation in Pittsburgh. In Atlanta, that was very concerning stuff. Kirk Cousins moved less in this game per dropback than he ever has in a game in his career. He did not attempt a play action pass. They did not call a play action pass, which is the thing that he's been so good at in his career. He didn't line up under center once in this game, which again is the thing he's been so good at in his career, all because they didn't want him taking long dropbacks. They had to leave him in shotgun. They had to leave him in the pistol so that he could just kind of float there on one-step drops and three-step drops when he tried to drive the football. He did not look like he trusted that plant leg, that back leg, that right leg on which he popped the Achilles. So scary stuff, like really, really worrisome stuff. He did not look like 90% of himself, like a guy who's he's still recovering. He looked like 60% of himself, right? Like you said, a guy still in the walking boot. Now, the hope is that since he didn't play preseason, and these were his first game reps, that he's going to be able to settle in and start trusting that leg more over the next 2 or 3 weeks. But, man, they've got Philadelphia on Monday night, week 2, and then a quick turnaround, Kansas City Chiefs in week 3. So if they don't figure this out quick and find a way to get the running game to work, get a couple turnovers, they might start the season 0-3. And there have been 6 teams in NFL history who have made the playoffs after starting 0-3, right? And so you could be in a hole in September that you're pretty much not digging your way out of, despite the fact that you have very lofty expectations for this roster. Big money quarterback, big Matt Judon trade, Justin Simmons signing. And so I'm worried. Easily the performance that worried me the most in terms of my preseason expectations, my week 1 results, worried the most about the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins for sure.
So as you know, and as we talked about over the years, I'm a massive Jets fan, but I come from a split family where we're half Jets, half Giants. Are the Giants trying? Are they trying to play this year? Like that was bad, man. That was as bad as it could be. Is it going to get any better? Is that what we're expecting from the Giants this year?
It is going to get better because you're not going to face Brian Flores every week. Brian Flores. My apologies. And Brian Flores, who's the DC there with the Vikings, is just really good at creating a lot of chaos. He's really good at flabbergasting and discombobulating some of the below average quarterbacks in the league, of which Daniel Jones is certainly one. So it is going to look less ugly in other weeks. Will it look good? I think that might be a bridge too far. I think that they're hoping to reclaim some of the 2022 Daniel Jones magic where they barely went over 500, kind of like no receivers, like a weird quarterback running game. And it's just like, even if you're successful doing that, even if you pull off 9-8 again, how do you feel good about where you're at with this guy's contract? How do you feel good about where you're at with the coaching staff, right? Like, you've got a young receiver in Malik Neighbors you want to develop. You have a young tackle in Andrew Thomas who's in his prime. Like, you got to be a little bit more serious now about building around these pieces and producing immediate results. And I know the Giants know this because they were looking at quarterback in the Chiefs draft. They were trying to trade up for Drake May. Like, they know the score. They know they have a guy who's on too big of a contract and he's not the quarterback they want him to be, and they need to get off that deal. And so, for right now, they're making chicken salad, right? For right now, you're trying to scrape together an offense as best you can. It'll look better than it did in week 1. But in terms of long-term seriousness, I will not take the Giants seriously as a healthy franchise until somebody different is under center. That's the long and short of it.
Let me follow up the question about Sam Darnold, who admittedly I liked a lot in the draft process. He's another quarterback we had out here in the Pac-12 footprint. We saw him play here. And, ultimately, we always have the conversation. We've had it around here about Zach Wilson. If landing with the Jets is just the wrong place for a young player to land, I'm open to that. Are you open, Ben, to a Baker Mayfield type resurgence? And I know he never looked the way Baker has looked at times, but he was solid against the Giants, and we know he's going to have that job for a while. Do you think there's a chance that Sam Darnold parlays this opportunity into a second act of his NFL career?
Yeah, I'm absolutely open to it. However, I will only be open to it kind of at the end of the season, not at the beginning, because the thing that Darnold really needs is continued reps, right? Like a proven experience of doing this long term, right? If you remember when he took over that Panthers job a couple years back, they all of a sudden, he took it over late in the season and bang, they had 4 great games, right? Oh, high EPA per play, dynamic downfield passing, explosive yards after the catch. And then all of a sudden it withers away, right? Like, he has not been able to sustain his peak play at any stop in his career. And so, absolutely, he put a couple good throws on a pretty bad Giants defense. I think that Kevin O'Connell is going to be really good for him in terms of learning how to string those explosives together, kind of helping him create a good offense while also not giving him so much of the control that he's throwing picks, he's taking sacks and what have you. But the nature of Darnold is just like, if I'm going to bank anything, I need it to be over a 17-game sample at this point. I need him to keep that job, hold on to that job, stay healthy, and not damage the team, right? Not shoot themselves in the foot with some of his bad mistakes. So I would love to see it. I'm interested in seeing it. I always say, like, a guy's been in the league 5 or 6 years. Guess what? It's going to be better than the last time you saw him, right? We improve over time. So I'm open to a better Sam Darnold. It's just this is absolutely one of those situations where it has to be a large sample before I take it seriously.
So a lot of storylines emerging from the Cowboys-Browns game. Obviously, Dak gets his money. That was announced prior to week 1. And, there's all the stuff about Deshaun. None of it's good. Hasn't been good for a long time. And there's all the stuff about the Browns. But the Cowboys go to Cleveland, and they get a win against one of the best defenses in the league, and they look good doing it. So kind of same question, your takeaways from that game and the quarterback situations on both sides.
Yeah, I'm really pro Cowboys this year. I think the Cowboys are going to be really successful this year. And I like them as a legit contender in the NFC. And I think that everybody thinks that's preposterous because, A, they keep losing to the 49ers and to other Kyle Shanahan coaches in the playoffs. And B, because the long-term health of this team was in so much question, right? Because they didn't have CD extended, they didn't have Dak extended, and they didn't have Michael Parsons extended. But what we always fool ourselves into thinking that off-season L's translate to, like, in-season L's, and sometimes it happens because, like, the vibes are really bad and, like, the locker room isn't good. But the same thing that has made the Cowboys successful in 2021, 2022, and 2023 when they were winning more regular season games than any team in the league, save for the Chiefs, the same thing is still there. It's Dak Prescott, it's CeeDee Lamb, and it's Michael Parsons, right? The stars of this team remain, and to this, one game into the season, look excellent, look highly impactful. And so I have a lot of trust in them to win a ton of games in the 2024 season. Will they beat those 49ers in January football, that pesky team they haven't been able to unseat? We'll find out. We got to get there. But one of the main reasons they've been losing that contest is because they had Dan Quinn as their defensive coordinator, and Kyle Shanahan knows how to beat Dan Quinn. He's known him for a decade. Well, now they have Mike Zimmer. They made a defensive coordinator change with the intention of beating the 49ers come January football. So I'm buying Dak stock. I'm buying Cowboy stock. I think they're going to be playing a lot of football. I think they're going to be playing late January football this year. As for the Browns, this is a joke. This is pathetic. Deshaun Watson is terrible at playing quarterback and is a terrible person. The fact that he remains employed in the league is a disgrace, has been a disgrace. And the fact that the Browns are bending over backwards and restructuring his contract and changing offensive coordinators and building the whole system out of making an offense out of this guy who just clearly doesn't want to play quarterback well. Like, he just bad habits, bad process, not accurate, like making excuses in the media already. Didn't play preseason. They said they wanted to play preseason. Like, I'm so done taking it even remotely seriously. Like, this team was so much better with Joe Flacco at quarterback. They actually ran an intelligible offensive system. It made sense for their players, and they were all spearheaded forward, all rowing in the same direction, trying to put points on the board. And so I'll take the Browns seriously once I see Jameis Winston at quarterback and not a second before, which, man, did not think Jameis Winston would make me take a team seriously, but here we are.
Jeez. Well said. Hey, before I say you lose, speaking of massive storylines, I was on the golf course when I got a text about Tyreek Hill getting Scotty Schefflered. No part of me, I mean, studying on so many levels, then you see the video, which is gross for a number of different reasons. And then he goes and he plays like Tyreek Hill. How did Ben Solak digest the situation that took place down in South Beach?
Yeah, so you hear about it as game begins. Like, I didn't even realize that Calais Campbell ended up there with him and was also put in handcuffs until Calais Campbell was speaking in the post-game presser, right? Like, it happened right before NFL Sunday. I got home 30 minutes before takeoff. I was at church. I missed all of this. Just scrambling to catch up and, understand what happened. And then, right, you see the body cam footage, and you're just like, okay, well, this is extremely embarrassing for the Miami Police Department, which doubled down on this was good behavior, this was technically correct behavior before the cam footage was released. And so now you have an important discourse to continue in NFL spaces, which is how in this country is something that needs to be addressed with the Miami Police Department, with metropolitan police departments across the nation, while also acknowledging that we can't make Tyreek Hill out to be like a hero of justice and a face of good behavior in the league. That has not been who he's been in the past. Doesn't change how we view this moment, but it's important not to lionize Tyreek too much.
Real quick, with the latest allegations with Deshaun Watson, I mean, look, I don't know how, as you said, I don't know how anyone can speak for him at this point. And I hesitate to say, okay, is victim 23 the tipping point? Because it sounds so obtuse.
Mm-hmm.
But is this enough? 23 the tipping point? Because it sounds so obtuse.
Mm-hmm.
But is this enough for everyone to finally wake up to say, like, this guy should not be employed by an NFL team?
If that happens, then it will only be because the Cleveland Browns saw him play football and saw that he was bad at quarterback, and now they want out.
Yeah, well
Which that's the part of it that is so frustrating, is that I would like for Deshaun Watson to be out of the league, because I'm a fan of football, and it makes me really upset that he's employed by the National Football League. Like, I don't want to be rooting for a sport where these sorts of guys get to play. But every way that the Browns get out of the Deshaun Watson deal, and I put that out of the Deshaun Watson deal in scare quotes there, every way that they do just feels also awful. Not equally awful, but also awful, because, now what, the Browns get all the money back that they were going to pay Deshaun Watson because one more sexual assault case came up? Like, that's ridiculous. They shouldn't be getting a team boon for that. Like, that's horrible. Like, now they can cut Deshaun Watson and void the guarantees they gave him because this news came out later, whereas they gave him the guarantees after all the previous news came out. They should never have been allowed to give him the guarantees in the first place. They should have been allowed to give him the contract in the first place. So there's nothing about this I don't think, right? And, like, however the Deshaun Watson contract situation with the Browns resolves itself, whether he's cut tomorrow because of conduct off the field or if he plays out the entire deal with them, it was a black mark on the league when he signed it. It is a black mark every single day that he continued to play on it, and it'll be a black mark long after it ends.
Well said, buddy. Hey, it's been fun to check you out on the new platform, and I've had Mina on the show a couple times. She rules. So keep up the great work, and thanks for the time, Ben, okay?
Yeah, appreciate you, Spence. You take care.
All right, Ben Solak, now over at ESPN, NFL analyst, spent a number of different years with the Pro Football Network. Man, he has risen up the ranks. I always appreciate his time. At Benjamin Solak is where you find him. Week 2 of the NFL will kick off on Thursday with the Bills and the Dolphins down at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. All right, we were just talking about the Cleveland Browns. Do you have a former Browns player in studio? Sorry, I do. Advanced Window Products, Jake Weber, Nate Orchard. Gentlemen, happy Tuesday. How we doing?
We're great.
We're great.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to comment on anything we were just talking about, Nate. Is there an NFL team you cheer for, one you played for, one you grew up watching?
Yeah, I grew up watching the Eagles. I was a big Eagles fan. Andy Reid, Brian Westbrook, Donovan McNabb, that era. That was really fun to watch. But as of now, I just players that I played with, that I got drafted with, that are still playing. Coaches, a big fan of Coach Reid. I was fortunate to play with him in Kansas City. But just all in all, I think all teams and players, whether there's a coach, like Aaron Glenn, DC for the Lions, he was one of the secondary coaches when I was in Cleveland, so it's kind of fun. And they got one of the coaches on staff who I played with in Washington. It's just fun just watching the game because there's somebody I recognize on the field.
Jake, I'm going to guess Cowboys fan.
No.
Oh,
no. I hated Cowboys growing up.
Niners.
No, I was a Broncos fan.
Broncos
that
fan.
was my days with the John Elway, Terrell Davis.
Okay.
Those were my glory days. I did like Dion when he was in Dallas, but that was the only thing I liked about the Cowboys.
Hard not to like Dion as the player.
Yeah.
The coach has some work to do. We'll get to that.
Yeah, that's true.
But before we catch a break, Advanced Window Products, guys, football special going on this week. So, Nate, we'll start with you. What do you want our listeners to know?
Yeah, if you had the thought of replacing your windows or had your windows assessed by, a door knocker or another window company, please give us an opportunity to come out to your home. We are a local window company. We build the windows, we install the windows, and we service them for life. You call today and get on our schedule. You'll get Darren, who is our big teddy bear, big Utah fan, big sports fan in general, but you will unlock $3,000 off the purchase of 10 or more windows, and all you have to do is call and get on the schedule today.
All right, Jake, let's talk financing, right? Everybody has different budgets, and this time of year, kids are going back to school, right? You got to pay for the kids or whatever. So you have financing options for anybody with any budget. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, and I think, as Nate's saying, you've had maybe listeners out there have had someone come knock on their door, or they've listened to another window company and been afraid by the price that they've heard, where it's like, oh, we're not ready to do that yet. And that's where it's, please just give us a call. If you've had that experience, we are the manufacturer, as Nate said, and we're going to come in about half that price. And on top of that, we have financing options for any budget. So someone that's looking for a small monthly payment, we can get you payments as low as $130 a month. Or if you're wanting to delay that payment, you could get the windows in now
and pay for them in 12 months from now without paying interest on that. So you get the tax return, whatever it is you're looking for. The key is just getting on the schedule, having Darren come out to your house, and he can walk through all your financing options. He'll teach you about the windows, educate you, because what we love is an educated buyer, someone that understands what they're buying and why they're going with us. And then you'll know the price on the spot and all your financing options on the spot.
So your job today is step one, which oftentimes is the hardest step, but in this situation, it's the easiest step because if you need windows now, you can beat the Russian order today at 801-850-9100 and save $3,000 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. But if you anticipate needing windows, buying a home, selling a home, remodeling a home, you should call today to get on the schedule because you lock in that savings anyway of $3,000. So here's the number. It's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100. It's Advanced Window Products. More with Jake and Nate coming up right here on ESPN 700. Nate Orchard just tried to run out of studio like he was a quarterback escaping from his own rush. You guys aren't going anywhere, man. We got an entire segment to do here. We've got Nate Orchard, Jake Weber live in studio, Advanced Window Products. We'll get to their special football deal in a moment. All right, Mayor of Sac Lake City, have you seen enough from Connor O'Toole to make you a little bit nervous about that record? I mean, your number, as we talk about every year, is not, what is it, 18.5? Is that what it is? Okay, will you fire up his mic? 18.5. But Connor so far, only 2.5, but he is in the backfield like every play. Give me your thoughts on a guy that played the same position you did.
Yeah, he's explosive, right? He's long. He knows how to use his leverage, really knows how to bend the corner, right? And he's coming from receiver, tight end, to now playing this position is a fun transition.
And you know that.
And I know it, right.
Thing. Yeah,
and
yeah.
So for him to really catch on so quickly, that just goes to show the coaching that he's getting from Coach Lewis Powell, and obviously Luther Ellis, right? Some of the best guys to do it. But yeah, he's got it, right. And right now it's just the level of competition, right? You get done with SUU, you beat Baylor, Utah State will be the combination of the two. But from there on, right, Arizona and all these good teams, like that's where it'll really start to show. And through all of that, right, throughout the season, the most important thing is just staying healthy.
You know, Jake was talking about how I went to the Notre Dame game, which didn't go well for them, right? You were live there.
It was live.
What was that like? Because Notre Dame comes out, big opening win. I'm always skeptical about two teams in college. I don't want to hear about Notre Dame or USC. Until I see about 4 or 5 games, then let's have a conversation. And USC looks legit.
Yeah,
but Notre Dame, again, opening season win, they fall flat on their face. What was it like to be there?
Just seemed typical Notre Dame. They come out ranked 5th in the country. There's talk about the playoff. They can be able to do this. Their schedule is very favorable, and they come off that win against A&M, looking strong. They played well. Where then they came into NIU and just NIU owned the line of scrimmage. They dominated up front, defensively, offensively. They were running the ball. It was 3, 4, 5 yards a pop, and like Notre Dame couldn't do anything about it. The stadium, like which is so rich in like tradition, all of like the whole campus, everything leading up to the game, everyone's pumped, ranked number 5 in the country. But then as the game starts to go, you get to halftime and they're up, or it's tied at halftime, I think, and you start to think, okay, Notre Dame's gonna turn on in the second half, and third quarter ends. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is, and then you get to the fourth quarter. And Notre Dame's up 14-13 with 2 minutes left, and NIU drives down, and they kick a game-winning field goal with 30 seconds. The stadium just completely deflated. And almost in a sense of, like, not like disappointment, but just you couldn't – yeah, disbelief. Exactly. And afterward, as people are walking out of the stadium, like, no one's even talking. It's just a complete – wait, what just happened? One of the biggest upsets Notre Dame has ever – experience, to be there, a part of it. And to be honest, like as a fan, you go to the game wanting a good game. So kind of cheering for, like, I like Notre Dame, but cheering for NIU the first half, like let's just keep it a game, see how it goes. And then come to the end, it's like, oh my, they really blew the game. They lost 14-16.
The MAC was 0-51 against AP top 5 teams prior to Saturday, and that's the first time that NIU has beaten an AP top 10 team. And after going down to Ford Field against A&M week 1, it was just pretty stunning. But, Nate, it just goes to show you once again what the consistency of Coach Wood in Utah football is all about. Because I'll tell you what, I went down to watch the fourth quarter of the game on the sideline because I wanted to see if I could get a look at Cam, see what people were talking about with Cam. And there was this palpable sense of, like, anxiety. Because, you know, Cam goes down, they put in Isaac, and the offense just stalls. I'm not trying to pile on Isaac, who's 18 and just enrolled in April. Did you ever think at any point on Saturday Utah was in danger of losing that game?
No, just because, you know, the defense that we have, right? The defense is going to put the weight of the game on their back. You could feel it in all 3 phases, in the stadium itself, just how, I mean, the air was taken out of the stadium when Cam left. There was this concern. I mean, there was the distraction in the back of everybody's mind what's going on with Cam, and you could see that, right? The players played that way. There may be some fatigue, but also mental fatigue and knowing, like, hey, what's going on with our quarterback? Is the season over? Are we not going to make it to the playoffs, right? Again, you got to focus one play at a time, one game at a time, but definitely the concern and the distraction behind surrounding Cam. And so, you know, for Isaac to step in the second half and, you know, keep us, to where obviously we won the game. But the biggest thing was I knew that the defense at the end of the day would help us come away with a victory.
Refresh my memory. Who were your quarterbacks at the U? Was that Wynn? Was that
Yeah,
Jordan?
I had Jordan Wynn, Travis Wilson, John Hayes, Adam Schultz, the transfer from Oklahoma.
Kendall Thompson.
Good pull, Jake.
I'm missing like one or two more.
So let me ask you this. So you had a bit of a rotating cast, and at times Jordan played really well. At times Travis played really well. I mean, Travis is up there with a lot of the Utah record books. But I'm just curious, if you're on the defensive side of the ball, and you guys do your job, force a turnover, 3 and out, whatever, go to the sideline, take the helmet off, sipping on some Gatorade, and you look up and you're like, what? I got to go back out there? And 3 and out start piling up. I know you're a team. I know you're a unit. But what's the challenge to just focus on your job while the other side of the ball clearly is not pulling their weight?
Right. Yeah. No, it's definitely frustrating, right? And as a former player, and at the time at the University of Utah, the mentality surrounding all of that, especially with Kalani as a DC, was like, we're going to get it done. Like every week, it's going to be on us. And nothing against the boys on the other side, but it's up to us to win this game. And that was every single week, right? And so we went into each game as the mentality as we are the offense, defense, and special teams. We're going to give our team a good field position, right, whether we get a turnover, and we're going to score like we did every single year that I was there on defense, right? And then we're just going to set everybody up for success, whether it's a short field for a punt return, and to be able to just manage the game that way. But collectively, it was just a mentality of like, it's going to be on us, right? And so put the weight of it on everybody's shoulder. Everybody do your 111. Let's go out and just freaking dominate.
And that's what happened Saturday. I mean, O'Toole gets the strip sack. I think Cam at one point had 5 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, right? Because they get the ball at the goal line. And then Van blocks the field goal, and Te'o grabs it and takes it to the house.
Right.
So after, you know how fans are. After the game, it's like, oh, here we go again. It's another Utah win. It's like, well, that's what Utah football is.
That's right.
And when the offense can figure it out like they did 2 years ago with Cameron under center, then you can win Pac-12 championships. You certainly need balance, but Saturday felt like a classic Kyle Whittingham football game.
For sure, and especially going into that second half, right? It's just, you have a quarterback like Cam over the last few years who's been a game changer in so many ways and has given us this level of entertainment and joy with the Rose Bowls and all this stuff. And, my hope and is that the defense that this will be a defense dominant team through and through. And that's the case. And when you have somebody like Scally, Shaw, Lou, all these coaches on the staff, I mean, that's just going to be our mentality every single week.
Yeah. All right. Equal time. Let's bring in our Cougar insider, Jake Weber, our resident Cougar insider.
Yeah.
You know what, Jake? I'll tell you this. Okay, and I said this on Friday. Right. I don't think people were talking about that SMU game with enough urgency. You lose that game on the road in Dallas. You have to beat Wyoming and Laramie. Then you have to find 4 conference wins to go bowling. Look at their schedule. I don't see 4.
No.
I see 3. That's why I think they're going to win 6. But if they didn't win on Friday, I think we're having a different conversation. And I'm going to say the same thing to you I said to Nate about Utah on Saturday. That was a Kalani win, okay? Yeah. Turnovers, overcome it. But, just like Utah did on defense, that was Kalani saying we got to find a way to get it done. And it was a very impressive defensive performance. 2-0 for BYU. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the thing that is amazing to see is what Nate talks about at Utah with Kalani. You seeing glimpses of that with BYU, the pressure, the D-line. Like, that's what is so key. You got to get the pressure. But then just the offense the past 2 years down at BYU, it just seems like you haven't had that solid quarterback that you felt great about. And then you rely on the defense. And injuries never help. But coming into SMU, that was a game that – I don't want to say it was overlooked, but SMU hasn't. I don't think people have had that view of SMU as being like, oh, they're some great team. I think the program is turning around, and I think you saw that in that game. They have some athletes, and they really. It was a tough game. Like BYU easily could have lost that game, but I think going forward now they needed that win to have any chance of going bowling.
And Kalani yesterday during his media availability, we got an LDS cuss word. He said, "Hold on to the stinking ball," right?
Ooh.
Because
Careful.
Here's the thing, like Retzlaff, it's 4 fumbles in 6 games, two more picks. Here's my question, Dave. We'll start with you. Who hates turnovers more, Kyle or Kalani? Kalani does.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, for me, because, in the defensive room, I mean, you feel it, right?
Yeah.
That's like your dad/uncle and a whole lot of poly love in there and getting really close to your face as far as, yelling at you. But I heard that interview actually this morning, and, to hear Kalani's tone, and then I could just picture him, just saying – the question was asked about the turnovers, and he said, "Just protect the freaking ball."
And you
right?
saw the
and he said it great, right? It's not just your ball; it's the team's ball.
Yep.
It's the equipment people's ball. It's everybody that works in the facilities ball. It's the fans' ball, right? Like protect the ball because that's the livelihood, and I think the players feel that. And this may be a good season for them to turn things around.
I don't think I had ever heard a coach articulate it the way Kalani did, because ultimately turnovers change games, turnovers lose games, and losing games loses your job.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's why it's so important.
Right.
I wonder if you could share with our listeners, because Kyle talks about it all the time, and Kalani does too, like how coaches approach it when it comes to – because no player is like, I'm going to go out and fumble. I'm going to intentionally throw a pick. You all want to hold on to the ball. But how are you coached up on the defensive side to force turnovers and why that's so important? And on the other side, hold on to the damn ball. Like, is that something that can be coached?
It's amazing when you go into spring ball, not as much, but when you head into fall camp, coaches do a really good job of breaking everything down as far as, statistics on turnovers and, the win ratios with that. And then you go into season and they're breaking down, opposing quarterbacks and their turnover ratios and other position groups and who does a poor job with ball security. And so you're targeting specific players who don't do that great at taking care of the ball. But all of that makes a difference, right, in the world. And like you said, turnovers win games, right? And if you're not protecting the ball, I mean, it changes the outcome for every team. And it gets even deeper when you go into field position. And whether it's from a special teams punt or where they lose the ball, all those things coaches take into account, especially Coach Witt, which is mind-boggling to see all the numbers that he can put up and spit out. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to routine and how you perform in practice, right? Because practice transfers over to the game and all your little habits, whether it's when a running back or receiver's running by you, punching at the ball, and just constantly looking for turnovers at every point, even if you're going against a scout team and making a habit of that move. And for me, it was always as a rusher when you're coming around the edge, you can't touch the quarterback even though he's scout team, but it's simulating that arm coming out and reaching for the ball, and visualizing all these things. And then from there, once it comes to Saturday, Sunday, you're out there making those plays happen.
So I was told this morning that Isaac Wilson is getting first-team reps, Jake, this week in a way that he hasn't prior to. He's 18. He enrolled in school in April. And what I've been saying so far this week is, okay, if Isaac's true, it has to look better than it did on Saturday. Going up against one of the best defenses in the country week in and week out has to be something that's beneficial for offensive players at Utah. How do you think Isaac will be prepared should he start Saturday against Utah State?
I think this week, if he's in practice getting more of those reps, I don't know what Cam's status is, but if Isaac's getting more reps, it's got to be good for him. Going against Utah's defense every single rep, but getting into the game versus practice is always different. And with him being so young, inexperienced, the nerves, you can see it. Like, he can sling the ball. Like, he's got that magic release.
Wilson
that thing
boys
comes
can
out.
throw
Like,
football.
they just got
there's
it's a
no doubt,
pretty release.
Yep.
But you get in the game, and it's just different. And it's like, is he going to be like the game breaker? Is he going to be able to get in, step up? And that comes with time. That comes with, I think, reps, especially at quarterback position. Like, that's the trust from your teammates around you, that everyone is like looking at you like, hey, he's our guy. To then having that confidence that, like, the play, stepping up to the line, reading the defense pre-snap. It's just everything moves so much faster. It's just those reps. So in practice, you got to hope that they're simulating everything. It's not, they're going against the defense, that they're not taking it easy.
Right.
They don't got guys kind of like, hey, let's take it easy with each other.
Yeah, no, as a guy who had a lot of different quarterbacks in high school and in college and a whole lot in the pros, you see the drop off from 1 to 2. But the biggest thing, like Jake said, is just the repetition in practice.
Yeah.
Right? You got to get those practice reps. And as we all know, the ones are getting at least 90% of the reps, whether that's in Skelly, run, 7-on-7, whatever it may be. The one quarterbacks are getting the looks. And so now that, Isaac may be projected to start this week, you hope that he earns the trust of his teammates. He's getting all those reps. increasing his confidence and the belief in his teammates and him that he can go out and get him a dub.
Question for both of you, and then we'll get to the deal we have with Advanced Window Products. Jake, we'll start with you. What was the biggest difference the first time you stepped on a practice field with college players? And Nate might be an outlier because he was ready to play right away.
Yeah, like he's look, we're a little different.
No. But you were in the game.
He was in the video game.
Okay, you're in the game.
I was in the game.
You're in the
You're
game.
right,
I'm going to ask you the
you're right,
question.
you're right.
I'm going to ask you the question.
So speed. I think speed is like that is where it's like night and day. You go from high school, everyone, like you get down to BYU, Utah's going to be the same. Anywhere you go, play college. The guys on that field were all number ones. They were all the guy on their team. Everyone's fast, but then the size. Like I remember walking out on that field looking at the offensive linemen, like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing out here?
Yep.
Like like the DNs, man, like the DNs, tight ends, like Dennis Pitta. Dennis Pitta is what, 6'5", 265 pounds, and ran a 4.40. It's like, what is this guy? But it's just the size and speed. Those are the things eye-opening. You get used to it. The speed you kind of get used. The size you get used to it. But that's that first initial thought. At least for me, I'm a little guy out here.
So Nate, you were very ready to play right away. Okay, we all know you're ready, but you did make a positional change like Connor did from wide receiver to D-line. What was the biggest point of, I don't know if it was frustration or acclimation when you took the step up?
From receiver to DN?
Or from high school. See, we can't even
Yeah.
ask him.
He's
He's
like,
like, nah, that was good. They had to
What are you talking
adjust
about?
to me.
Speed, huh? Like, yeah, I was fast enough. Big enough. I was big enough.
Was there anything you had to adjust to at all? Jake, there isn't. Oh, my gosh.
Let's just skip to the promo.
That is a professional. That is a professional athlete.
No, I would say the biggest
man.
jump was college to the pros, right?
Yeah.
And what I noticed right away was you talk about like old man strength and guys who've been doing this. When I got into the league, Joe Thomas had been doing this for 5-6 years already, right? And so to see his technique was flawless, but and the strength was amazing, right? And I'm playing a 6 technique coming down, hitting Joe, and it's just like, whoa, you're really hitting a brick wall. But I would say speed and strength going into the NFL because you had guys who were playing 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And here I am, this rookie coming in, and it took a little adjustment.
Still maturing. Your body's still maturing.
All right, Advanced Window Products. Jake Weber, Nate Orchard, live in the house today. Jake, we'll start with you. We have a fall football special this week only. What do you want our listeners to know? Yeah,
look, we manufacture and install our windows. That's when you're buying windows from us, you're working with us. We are the manufacturer, and because of that, the price that we're able to give you is going to be better than the competition. The quality of the window is going to be better than the competition. And because we are the manufacturer, everything that we do with the actual manufacturing side, the product is all picked out. Like we hand select the glass that we're using, hand select the vinyl, the components, everything that's going into that window, the sealant that we use. It's going to be the best in the market. And because you're buying from the factory, you're getting a lower priced window because we cut out that middleman. And then just icing on the cake is the lifetime warranty. We're local. We're not going anywhere. And so you're going to be getting this quality window with the quality install, knowing that if anything ever comes up 5-10 years from now, you give us a call, and we're going to have someone out there within a few days to take care of whatever issue you're seeing.
And also, if you are going to sell your home, that warranty is transferable to the
that
new
warranty
owner,
is
right?
transferable. You're exactly right.
All right, Nate. As I say every time you guys are in studio and every time I talk about a business here locally, if people are going to choose a business, they're going to choose the people that run that business. This is a family endeavor. It's a labor of love for you guys. Talk to us about how committed you are to making sure that our community gets the best service.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken my time in the NFL, right? I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of up and down. I've been knocked down so many times and still bounce back up. And really coming into this business, like you said, it's been a labor of love. I want our employees and our community to understand that, we're here to serve you. We want to bring you peace of mind knowing that we're putting all our full attention and focus and energy into building an amazing product to transform your home from an energy efficiency standpoint and from an aesthetic standpoint, and leaving you with something that you can be proud of to show your friends and family, and ultimately, put more money back in your pocket with energy savings.
All right, there you go. So call today if you need windows immediately, because you can beat the rush and get it from the factory to your front door in a matter of weeks at 801-850-9100. Also, if you call today, you save $3,000 when you purchase 10 windows or more at 801-850-9100. However, you might be in the market to sell or buy a home in the next couple of months. Well, you should still call today because you get that $3,000 off by getting on the schedule. So the phone number at Advanced Window Products is 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. More coming up next with Scott Mitchell. Keep it here on ESPN 700. When we had Jake Weber and Nate Orchard in studio, we're going to chat with him coming up in a little bit. I love how when I asked Nate what the biggest adjustment was from high school to college, he had nothing. He used that to answer a question going from college to the pros because Jake played at BYU. So he talked about the speed, the size, and Nate was like, yeah, I was pretty much ready to play right out of high school. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, Nate, different specimen when we're talking about one Nate Orchard, a guy who obviously we talked about it, was a wide receiver, 6'3", could move, could handle the ball when he was playing basketball. He could do it all, and then of course grew into a guy the size of a defensive lineman at the NFL level. So that always helps.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So appreciate their time today. Appreciate our next guest time. One of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah, member of our broadcast team, Scott Mitchell, on a Tuesday afternoon. Scott, how are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys doing down there at the Broadway studios?
We are good. Now, I feel like I'm obligated to ask you where we find you because every time I do, I feel like we have a very exotic, interesting answer. Scott, where are you at on this Tuesday?
I'm actually in my own studio. I've been doing a bunch of recording today, and so I'm recording, actually.
All right.
Took a break so I could talk to you, Spence.
I appreciate that, Scott. So let's start here. I was told today that Isaac is going to take a lot of reps with the ones this week. Not reporting that. I was just told that, and it was somebody who would know. So what is a reasonable expectation if Isaac is going to be the starter coming up on Saturday? And we'll get to the Baylor game, but right out of the gates, I want to talk about, from your perspective as a former quarterback, how much better could it potentially look if Isaac spends a week with the ones prior to Saturday?
Oh, it'll be tons better. It shouldn't be really too bad to begin with because he was getting reps in fall camp, and we're just out of fall camp. So for him to kind of play, I mean, this is as many reps or practice reps as he's possibly going to get. From that side of it, he's always ready. But you're never ready to go in a game. You just have to go in a game. You have to experience it. You have to learn from your lumps. I heard you talk about Nate Orchard. It's certainly a lot easier as a defensive end, rushing the quarterback than it is a quarterback trying to avoid that guy and decipher a defense and then throw the ball all different levels, shapes, and arcs and put it in the right spot. I mean, and to remember all the play, and just to understand situations and how you should handle those things. And the only way you learn that is to play. And so I think Isaac Wilson has a tremendous amount of talent. I think he can get by with a lot of things because of his talent, but you're always going to have mistakes. No matter how much practice time you get, you need to make the mistakes livable. Like don't throw interceptions in the red zone, which is kind of what he did when he was there before. Don't have the big turnover, but you still have to be aggressive. And I think it's a huge mistake, Spence, if he is the quarterback on Saturday, that they pull the reins back. The one guy they got to get going in that game is Isaac Wilson above anyone else. Give him confidence. Throw the ball early. They're gonna stuff the box. Try to stop the run. You got one-on-one coverage on the outside. Take advantage of it. Get Isaac Wilson chances in early downs. Like first down is the biggest down for him because then it makes second and third down very, very manageable.
So let's go back to last Saturday and let's hone in on Isaac. Let's hone in on the play calling. What did you see? And is there anything, Scott, that you saw with your eye that those of us that didn't play the position the way you did that could give Ute fans some confidence in Isaac moving forward? Because as I said, okay, he's QB2. We get it. We hear you and we understand the deal. If he's QB2, it still has to look better than it did a week ago when they entered Big 12 play. Were there things that stood out to you that actually looked good, even though to the naked eye the offense clearly stalled?
Well, when you have 9 throws, it's not a lot to look at, and they really shut it down for him. But it was also kind of hard for him because early on in the game, Baylor had 2 safeties deep, and Utah just gashed the heck out of him running the football, did a tremendous job. And then Isaac comes in the game, and they drop that safety down in the tackle box, and there's an extra guy. And they're just saying, we're daring you to let this freshman throw the ball to beat us. We're going to stop the run. Utah ran the ball okay in that situation, but they still ran the ball. And so it makes it hard where you really put a young quarterback even in a harder position because you're running on downs where they have the advantage, where you should be throwing. And then you get in third down, and he didn't have a lot of third downs, but they're 3rd and 5, they're 3rd and 7, they're 3rd and 11, and the percentages go down dramatically in those situations where if you win on first down, then third down becomes very easy because it's 3rd and short, or it's not even third down. It's okay to get a first down on first down. And when you put him in a position where the most pressure, you've got to convert this or we punt the ball again. It's just a hard thing to ask a young player. Cam Rising is brilliant at third down. He wasn't in this game, but typically he's been really good at converting third downs. And so Isaac Wilson plays in this game. I think you have to be really aggressive on early downs and whatever that means. If you're going to run it, figure out how to run it with extra guys in the box or throw the ball on early downs. Coach Whittingham always talks, you got to get 5 yards or more if you're really going to be productive as an offense on first down. That's what they really need to shoot for. But I saw Isaac Wilson on a third down, someone in his face, throw a very accurate pass, 12, 15 yards down the field on a curl. I saw him handle the blitz. They came after him. He hit this short slant route. And even though the guy batted the ball, he saw it. He went to the right guy. Had it, not been batted, guy probably would have scored a touchdown. So he didn't panic in those situations. He did have the one bad throw to Dorian Singer on an option route. Guy's wide open, and he just missed him. And he hits that. That's a first down. So that was really the only bad throw I saw. I don't want them to scare out of Isaac Wilson like aggressiveness, because I think that's kind of his game. I mean, they're talking about Cam Rising, and hey Cam, you got to calm down a little bit or you're gonna get injured, and it's kind of hard to take that out of Cam Rising because it's so much of his game. So you're trying to live with the results, which are injuries, and you hope that those are at a minimum, or Cam Rising can be tough enough not to get injured. So you don't want to take aggressiveness out of a quarterback or any player for that matter, but you also want to be smart about what you do. And that's where, any good quarterback needs to figure out, okay, discretion is the better part of valor in this situation. Throw the ball away, live for another down. Even if you take a small loss, it's a whole lot better than being lost for the rest of the season kind of thing. And that's hard to do and hard to learn unless you've been out there in the game and you kind of get in those situations enough to recognize what's actually going on.
Yeah, well said. So is it fair to follow up with it's just going to be observation and not conclusion about Isaac for a while because he is so young and he needs reps and he needs time? Is that fair to say, Scott?
Well, you think about yes, it is very fair to say that. And you think about some younger guys like Tyler Huntley took over for Troy Williams. Troy Williams won 9 games the year before, was a guy I thought was going to take Utah to a championship, and they felt like Tyler Huntley beat him out. And Tyler was, I think he might have been a freshman or a redshirt freshman or something like that. He's really young, really surprising move. And Tyler that first year it was like taking, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And so they kind of bit the bullet while Tyler Huntley learned how to play at this level. But then it took him 2 steps forward in the years to come. And that's what you're going to see with Isaac Wilson. You're going to see a couple of steps forward, and then you're going to see a step back. I remember Dan Marino. When I came in and he was injured, and he says, "Man, don't worry about early on when you're playing." He says, "My first game, the year that I threw for 5,000 yards, he goes, I threw 3 interceptions my first game." So early on, once you're out there, you might have some issues, but it's just football, Spence, and it's football. You played your whole life. It's not any different than Isaac Wilson does. Don't make it into a bigger deal than it is. And don't, be decisive, man. Do not play timid, and do not play with the mindset of, playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win. And this is a great game to do that. I mean, you got a great opponent. You're better than who they are. It's a good test because you got to go on the road. You got a really good defense behind you. You got a million offensive weapons at your disposal. Like Isaac Wilson should go, man, he should lick his chops and go, here I come, and here we come, and just let our boys play, and let's go win this game and win it big.
Good stuff there. Let me follow up with this and ask you to take us behind the scenes a little bit this week and give me your best guess on how Coach Ludd is going to handle Isaac with the reps against the ones, and then from a play calling standpoint, your opinion, Scott, on what Coach Ludwig should do as far as approaching this game on Saturday to, of course, make sure you win first and foremost, but maybe at the same time with a side of how can we maybe give our young quarterback a little bit more confidence than he seems to have right now.
Well, they have to make a decision. And you have to make a decision, especially with a young quarterback early in the week. You just need to go, we're going with you, right? And that's probably the best decision because this injury to Cam's hand isn't like the most important. Your index finger and your thumb are kind of the most important fingers on your hand and your throwing hand to hold on to the ball and your pinky finger. So those two middle fingers aren't the absolute most important. The pain will be when he releases the ball and he flicks his wrist. That violent motion of actually throwing a football. That would probably hurt. Whatever this is, and I don't know what it is, so I'm just speculating. And so let that rest, because this game doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean a thing, but next week does. And the week after that, and those are tougher games that Utah's going to play this year, especially in a year when winning your conference championship is like priority one. And those are the games that matter. So make sure your quarterback's ready for those. If he comes back a little too early, it's probably something that's going to nag him and bother him the entire year. And that's miserable as a quarterback. So you got to just pick a guy right now, pick the young guy, give him all the reps, talk to him. What do you like? What are you comfortable with? And they do that. Andy does that with his quarterbacks, especially on third down. What do you like on third and short? What do you like third and medium, third and long? And maybe Isaac Wilson doesn't know that yet, but he knows, and they can see like what routes he throws best. And what I really like about Isaac Wilson, he throws the ball down the field fairly good. And that's a big challenge with most young quarterbacks because all they want to do is be check down Charlie and just throw it to the your relief underneath, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's always a bad thing when it's always the thing you do. And so I like that he has some aggressiveness to him. They got to get Brankeithy involved. These tight ends, they're such a big part of what they do. They're always open, and it's the easiest reads to make for a quarterback. I'd certainly start there with him. But I would, if I'm Andy Ludwig, I'm figuring out how can I get my wide receivers, my tight ends involved. How can I get the ball to my playmakers on early downs and get good yardage on first down?
I've got a two-part question for you about the play that went down when Cameron was injured. Part number one is, what would you have liked to have seen him do as a quarterback? And maybe that's just as simple as get rid of the ball. Part number two is, in real time, it was a bang-bang play, Scott, and I had trouble from my vantage point trying to understand if that was a penalty. Initially, in real time, I thought it was for sure, then went back and watched it, and I still think at the end of the day, a flag probably should have been thrown, but the initial contact was made in bounds. So that play where Cam went down, what would you have liked to have seen him do, and do you think that player should have been flagged?
So immediately, he's running to his left, and he has the ball in his left hand, and they have the leverage on him. Like, he is not going to get past those guys. Like, that whole play from early on, almost the hash marks, maybe the numbers, Cam should have been like, this is we lost here. We just take your loss. And that's what I was talking about, understanding and dissecting those moments when this isn't good. And you don't want to take something that's not good now and make it worse. So take your losses in that situation. You're in scoring position as it is. It's going to be second down, I think, and who cares, even if it's third down, because you're still in the game. Like, you're not in the medical tent, and you're not going in the locker room. You're in the huddle. And so sometimes when their momentum is flowing, like those guys chasing you, a lot of times you can reverse your momentum or stop, and they'll run by you, and it's almost like you stop and you take a step back and you throw the ball out of bounds. When you get near the sideline, ugly things happen to quarterbacks. Ugly. I mean, talk to Drew Bledsoe. I mean, he invented Tom Brady by being stupid and trying to make something really positive happen, and ended up in the hospital and almost died. And that all happened on the side. Like, those collisions they're just not good. Never good, you know? So I mean, even if Cam just fell down and just took a sack, who cares? I mean, in that situation, it's still better than the alternative. And so, and that's what I would like to see. That's what I would have liked to have seen. That play was never, ever going to be a good play. Now, if he's going to his right, you know, it's a different story because he can just throw the ball immediately, but he's got to hit the ball in his left hand, and he's got to switch it to his right hand. And then he makes this feeble attempt to throw it at the end. And I think that's what hurt him more than anything, because he didn't really have an ability to protect himself because he's being hit as he's throwing the football. And it is, look, they're trying to protect players. And it's one thing to hit a guy, you know, you're out of bounds. And then you know you're way out of bounds, and then you keep going out of bounds. And clearly that's egregious, and that should have been a penalty. Especially with this protection of players. I mean, you talk about, you know, these launching of the helmet kind of thing, type of hits. That injury could be as dangerous as those. So, sure, it should have been a penalty, but in all reality, it should have never even happened. He should have gotten rid of the ball quicker, done something quicker, and then we're all talking about Utah winning 40 to whatever in a game that they kind of they just shut it down. They just said, look, we're not going to let Baylor's not going to beat us, not going to beat our defense. The only way we lose this game is if Isaac Wilson throws turnovers and interceptions. And so we're just not going to let that happen. And we'll win ugly.
All right, Scott, before I say you lose, you know, I say this all the time. My listeners are probably sick of it. One of the reasons I love college football is that I think it's the most unpredictable sport we have week to week. These are young people. These are 18 to 12. These days, the window is a little bit bigger than it used to be, but they're still young people oftentimes. Ask Notre Dame, as they got by Northern Illinois. Ask a bevy of Big 12 teams a week ago. Some had to sweat it out. Some lost altogether, like Kansas on the road at Illinois. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you coming up this Saturday up in Logan if it's not Cameron and if it is Isaac Wilson? Now, that line is still Utah minus 20.5. Notre Dame was favored by 30. It's college football. Strange things happen. What's your concern level, if any at all, coming up on Saturday in Logan?
I'm always concerned for what you said, and it's very accurate. I mean, these are 18 to 22-ish young men, and most of their brains aren't fully developed, and they're capable of anything. And they usually do anything. You know, nothing shocks me, nothing surprises me ever. And what I, you know, always get nervous about is big game on the road next week, opening of Big 12. It's a game, Utah State, that Utah State's going to be more interested in than Utah is. Having to travel there, I mean, it could almost be a thing that's a little insulting to some people. Like, really, we have to come here and play? And right, wrong, or indifferent, that could be the attitude. So there could be kind of an attitude, and your attitude is your altitude, and so really kind of having the same mindset. And Coach Whittingham's really good at this, and it's something that permeates through the program. It's you know, just next game, we're just focused on this opponent, and it's not talk. They really focus on that, and so that's what you want to see from this Utah team. Is if we're really serious about winning our conference and winning a championship, well, you take care of business every week, and you really focus your attention on that. So I'm always nervous, but I always appreciate it, and how Coach Whittingham prepares his players. It's brought them 2 Pac-12 championships, and they run a pretty even keel with things. Even with a young quarterback, I think the mantra this week is like, hey, all the rest of you very veteran players, Cam Rising's out. He's not just our team. Everyone needs to show up. You need to support this young guy, and we need to all kind of play maybe just a little bit better this week. And so that probably will lead to a good game for Utah.
Scott, thanks for the time, my friend. Have a great week, and we'll get you back on soon, okay?
All right, look forward to it. Thank you.
Scott Mitchell, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Will be on the broadcast alongside Bill Riley and Stevenson Sylvester coming up on Saturday. 2:30 kick time. It's on CBS Network with that guy in his red ESPN 700 shirt. Porter Larson will begin at 8:30. I hope you have your television dialed in. I had all my NFL this weekend. I had all my college football. Had everything I want as a sports fan. Also, brand new equipment with a Hopper Plus, so all the apps are channels, save a grip of money. You guys can do it too. If you've been waiting, today's the day to dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Today is the day. And, guys, CBS Sports Network is available if you're a DISH customer. This is an easy thing to set up. You just go into your game finder and select your favorite teams and select Utah. Or if you're a BYU fan or Utah State fan, or maybe you want them all, the DVR will automatically find those games for you, set a recording. You don't have to even think about it. Plus, if you're traveling, let's say you're going to Mexico, you're out of town and you want to watch the game, grab your phone, open the Dish Anywhere app. Whether the game is over or in play, you can bring the game up and watch it on your mobile device, computer, laptop, whatever you want, and have access to your DVR recordings. Dish has done even a step further because we know this technology is great, but you know what happens if it's on a streaming service? All the streaming apps can be available inside the Dish system. So let's just say you got older TVs, you got to buy hardware or different things or new TVs to get the streaming to work. Well, not with Dish. You just add Netflix, YouTube, and Amazon Video Prime are built in, but you can add the additional apps just by simply going in and click on the name, and it downloads it. And then once you log in once, you don't have to do anything again, and every TV in your house will have access to those apps. Makes it simple. It's all in one place. And guys, Dish has got a killer 2-year promotional offer where you get credits for 2 years. The price will not change, and this is a guarantee during that 2-year period. Plus, you get movie channels, a whole stack of those, and the multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone. Guys, this is what we do day in and day out, is save people money. If you're a cable customer or a DirecTV customer, typically $60 to $100+ a month cheaper. So even if you took the lowest number, take 60 times 24 months, and you're not even taking in the calculation for the rate increase that's going to happen for everybody else that won't happen to you, we're talking about thousands. If you're a DirecTV customer, the ESPN Disney debacle still going on. You want to have access to those games? Call us right now. We'll get you everything you need installed as early as next day. 424-DISH. Call us now. Throw in dinner at JCW's. 801-424-3474.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Before we catch a break, we welcome in once again Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, Advanced Window Products. On a Tuesday afternoon, Jake, let's start with you, our Cougar insider, who did have to adjust from high school to college, but that's just us, us average athletes. We have a fall football special going on at Advanced Windows. What do you want our listeners to know?
Yeah, look, call right now. You got Darren on the other line. Darren is going to come out to your house. If you call today, get on the schedule. He'll come out to your house in the next day or two and just do an audit of your current windows. There's no pressure. There's not going to be that 2-hour-long, super intense, like, hey, tell you everything, and then all the pressure to put a sign out in front of your house and become a marketing house, and we're going to give you a better price. We want customers, people in our community to feel comfortable and educated when they're making a big change to their home. And so if you are possibly thinking about needing new windows, and you're looking at yours like, maybe mine are old. Mine are aluminum windows. Or, hey, I can see moisture between the panes of glass. Just give us a call. And Darren, as he comes out to your house, Nate made a joke earlier kind of talking about him being the big teddy bear. He will make you feel like family. And you're not going to be feeling comfortable. You're not going to feel like there's pressure. And he will teach you about what your house needs. And whether it's just glass or if it's windows, he'll give you a price on the spot, and he's going to tell you all of your financing options. And it's 45 minutes to an hour, and it's not that high-pressure situation. And then at the end of the day, you can decide you want to buy the windows right now. Great. If you want to hold off 6 months, that's fine. But if you call today and get on the schedule, we're going to give you $3,000 in savings. and if you buy 10 or more windows, and that will respect that price in 6 months. If you decide you don't need to buy windows now, but you want to do it in 6 months, we'll give you that price in the 6 months from now. But look, all you have to do is call today to get those savings unlocked.
Nate, obviously one of the things you guys do really well is the warranties. You've told us stories anecdotally before of people calling you that bought windows in the 90s, and you take care of them, right? So that's something you guys really take seriously, the lifetime warranties and also financing options.
Yeah, we take that very seriously, right? We've had customers even up in Bear Lake down to St. George, whether it's a service issue, whatever their concern may be, we're there to assess it, right? We are selling peace of mind, knowing that you're getting a valuable product, that the value itself is you can't put a price on it, right? We've been here for 38 years. We're here to service you and take care of your window needs, and our hope is that you buy windows from Advanced Windows, and those are the last windows you have to buy in your home.
You do not stay in business for 38 years if you're not incredible at what you do. I say it all the time. When you choose businesses, you choose the people that run those businesses. Choose these people, the Orchard family, great people. Here's the deal. You can save $3,000 when you buy 10 windows or more. If you call today, it's 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. As Jake referenced, if you need windows now, call right away. But if you anticipate needing windows in a few months, today's the day to call as well, because you just lock in that $3,000 savings. That's a lot of money. You can use that to remodel the rest of your home. It's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Dave Fox is live in studio. Coming up next right here on ESPN 700. Utah football coaches show tonight featuring Connor O'Toole and another player. Who's on the coaches show tonight? You remember?
Connor O'Toole and another player.
Connor O'Toole and another guy. So there's your tease for the Utah coaches show with Bill Riley when we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. But joining us live in studio, man, very special guest. He is a big deal.
Where is he?
He looks very casual.
Why am I here?
Did you just remove the tie? Is that all you did?
Yeah, I had a 3:30 interview.
It's Dave Fox over here.
Yeah, how are you?
3:30 interview with who?
With Cameron Coughlin. He's the assistant GM of the Bees. Sweet. And we have a relationship with the Bees. As you know, we broadcast their games. Mm-hmm. And Tony does play-by-play, Tony Parks.
So the best they could do is get the assistant GM.
So, well, we rotate. We rotate Steve Starks, Cameron Coughlin, who's a great guy,
sure.
Coughlin, and then Ty Wardle, who's the GM.
Nice. Okay.
So we rotate all them through. So don't disparage any of them.
I'm not disparaging anyone. The
you
Bees
just kind of did.
The Bees are my people.
Yeah. Okay.
They're my people. I was just wondering if you guys are partners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that all they could get you? Why not? Why not?
You just did it again.
Why not Mike Trout?
Well, Mike Trout's not in Salt Lake City.
We have Zoom now.
Let me rephrase this. This is a segment we do with management.
Okay.
So, like, we're looking ahead, like next year, you know, their final game in Smith's Ball from Sunday.
That's right. Yeah.
Then they go out to Daybreak, and I'm hearing it's going to be a beautiful stadium. Like,
yeah, but it's in Daybreak.
That's the issue.
I'm sure there are plenty of beautiful things in Daybreak. Guess what? I'll never see any of them.
Well, you might go out there once.
I will not.
What if you have a remote?
If you pay me to go there, I'll go.
What if they give you suite? You know they have suites right behind the plate, a whole row of them.
Yeah.
What if they give you one of those for a game?
Yeah, plus $500. I'll roll out. Watch a little baseball.
How do we get you on TV? We don't do that much.
Because you're my friend.
Well, thank you.
I do nice things for my friends.
Yeah. Okay.
And if the Bees,
how about you and I go to a game next year, and we'll just get a suite, just the two of us, and we'll get a ton of food.
In that case, the price just went up. I want a GER. I want an entire grand if I'm going with you.
GER?
Yeah, grand. That's what the kids are saying.
Right, I'll work on that. Is that what they say?
I think so.
No, I got to get with it.
Here's one. Do you know what Riz means? If I said you have the Riz, do you know what that means?
No.
It means you have charisma.
Oh, okay. Short for, yeah. Everything's just shortened.
No? How about this one? What if I say, Dave, you have the Riz, no cap? Do you know what that means?
No.
You have the charisma, and I'm not lying. No cap means I'm not lying.
Oh. Okay.
I have a 23-year-old son. I know how the
youngs
young
you get
talk.
all this.
I know how the young talk.
I have these grandkids. I never talk like that.
Yeah, but they're like 6. Your 6-year-old grandson is
I
not
have a
going to roll up
grandson
and
on
say
a
to you,
mission.
Wow.
Yes, my oldest.
Is he the oldest?
Yes,
Where's
he left
at?
like a month ago. Well, he's in the MTC in Mexico City right now, but he'll go to Riverside, Spanish speaking.
All right, congratulations.
California.
What's his name?
Daxton.
Shout out to Daxton.
Daxton Parks.
Called to serve.
There you go.
All right, Dave. Speaking of called to serve, see what I did there? Isaac Wilson, QB2.
Oh.
I've been saying it all week. I don't think I'm out of turn saying this. If he's QB2, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, they see things that we don't. So if Andy and Kyle and everyone says, okay, he's QB2, it's got to look better than it did on Saturday.
Well, two things, and you mentioned earlier, again, you emphasized you're not reporting this, but you heard he's getting reps with the ones. And so two things on this. One, yes, get him some, game-long reps against. Nothing wrong with Utah State, by the way. And I think you pointed this out. These guys know each other, and Utah State, some of those players may have gotten overlooked by Utah, and they want to go out and prove it.
Sure.
So it's not going to be a complete walkover. But they're favored by, 20.5 now. That's probably a good game to put him in. Downside is now, let's assuming Cam only misses one game. Now he's got to come back after missing a game and play probably the next best team or close to the next best team in the Big 12. By the way, in Stillwater. I mean, that's a lot. You'd like to see him get some reps. But on the other hand, I think last Saturday proved that Isaac Wilson needs reps, and you need to get him as many as you can. So we'll see how this works out. This Cam injury thing, though, just never ends.
I know. And we had Scott Mitchell on, and Scott outlined pretty articulately what he would have liked to have seen from Cameron on that play. I mean, you're running to your left with the ball in your left hand. Nothing's going to happen that's good. Get down and get it out of bounds, and discretion, the better form of valor, as Scott said. You're not going to. I've done the parallel before. I can remember when Bronco Mendenhall said preseason, Taysom Hill's not running this year. I'm like, oh, sweet. Then what exactly is he doing?
What's the point?
Bronco? Because, that's who he is. It's what he does. And sure enough, game one, Taysom sees the lane. Boom, he's gone. Now, Taysom and Cameron are different players. I'm not saying they're similar. I just don't think you can knock that out of a kid. I don't think in fight or flight, no matter what you do during the week, when Cam Rising sees a lane and he knows that part of what makes him Cam Rising is to be able to exploit that, he's just going to get down or throw it out of bounds. I don't think you can knock it out of the kid. I just don't.
Well, and I think the other thing is no football player takes the ball and thinks to himself, "Oh, I'm about to get hurt." I mean, that doesn't go through their mind.
Or you'll get hurt.
You know,
that's the way you think.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And it's interesting going back to Taysom, how he seemed to get hurt so much at BYU. Then he goes to the NFL, big, strong, fast, powerful guys, and he hardly ever gets hurt. And yet he's still running around. But you're right. You can't take that out of the kid. You can preach. That Andy Ludwig and Kyle Whittingham have told him repeatedly, keep yourself out of harm's way. And in that moment, he just, he didn't. What can you do?
Yeah, and, it does bring to mind, I've been talking about this all week, and we have Nate Orchard here. As you know, you said hi to Nate. It's the consistency. So here's how I'll phrase it. Whether you like it or not, as a Utah football fan, what happened on Saturday is essentially the bricks that have laid the foundation for this program. It's okay, we're compromised on offense. Guess what, D? It's on you. So what does the D do? Strip sack, get the ball at the 2-yard line, return field goal, miss for a touchdown. Like, I know it's not as exciting as watching what Cam did 2 years ago, but what makes Kyle who Kyle is what Saturday turned out to be. It's the defense. It's you're not doing anything. You're not going to move the ball on us. We're probably going to get a score on D, which they did, and then kill the clock offense. Don't mess it up. That was kind of a Kyle Whittingham win.
Which, by the way, they did that to perfection. That drive went after that last field goal or whatever it was, where they didn't have the field goal. But anyway, the last drive, 10 minutes to go or whatever.
Kai broke a big one, and
and they just ran the clock down. It was perfect. But sooner or later, as we saw last year, that it caught up to him 4 times, and that's just what's going to happen. So if you don't have Cam Rising the entire season, we can't sit here and say, "Oh, they're still a playoff team."
Oh, of course. But the good news is, from what I understand, Saturday is probably all he'll miss.
Yeah, I agree.
And I should be clear, as we're their radio partner, I'm not saying he's missing Saturday. We don't know. I was just told today, Isaac's going to get a lot of reps with the ones this week. But even if Cam may play Saturday, I don't think you want to push Cam. There's no way Cam is practicing right now, right? And so while Cam is sitting out, even if it's a couple of days, let Isaac go with the ones, and most importantly, let him go against that defense on the other side to be prepared for what he'll see on Saturday.
Yeah, he needs that. There's no doubt about that. It's interesting, too, that I guess this is true with almost any team. Your backup quarterback is never as good as your starter, otherwise he'd be the starter.
Dave.
But I feel,
Porter, are you rolling on this?
Did you make a drop in out of that?
Will you repeat that one more time for people that don't know football?
Your backup's never as good as the starter, or else he'd be the starter.
Did you know that?
That's kind of like when you come to Utah, you become us. We don't become you. Same thing.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. In-depth analysis.
My point being, there has been a pretty big drop-off the entire Cam Rising career.
Yes.
Maybe more so than some other teams, is what I'm trying to say.
Have you ever thought about coaching?
I've been asked many, many times.
I can see that.
But I always tell these programs, if I coach for you, you become me.
Yes.
I don't become you.
Which is why they say no,
and every time they're like, well, that's okay.
But you know
we'll
what?
Wait.
I'm ribbing you. You actually bring up a good point because last year, man, and I also want to be very clear. I'm not anointing or dismissing Isaac. He's 18. He enrolled in school in April.
Absolutely not. I didn't mean it by that.
No, but you're right. Like last year, and Brandon got hurt too. So I always remind everybody, it wasn't from 1 to 2. It was from 1 to 3, and then from 3 to 4 with Bryson and Nate. But you can't have a gap that big. Not in a sport like this. It's not a contact sport. It is a violent sport. People get hurt every single game. And that's why I said, all right, Isaac's the guy. But if he's the guy, it's got to look better than it did on Saturday if they're going to rely on him any longer than Saturday and Logan.
And I still feel like it will. And maybe what he needs is that time in Logan. And, we'll see. But it's just kind of interesting, the names that have wandered through here. And some of them have just transferred as soon as they get benched. But,
that's how it goes now.
That's how it goes.
So let's dig into this a little bit because you referenced the line. Excuse me. Utah, as of now, is a 20.5-point favorite. Notre Dame a week ago was basically a 30-point favorite. I think it settled at 29.5. They were at home against Northern Illinois. That's why I celebrate any win you can get as a college football team. But with all the dynamics in play, should there be legitimate concern going up to Maverick Stadium? I know Isaac played in some big high school games. I would imagine he's never played in a road environment like he's going to see up there. Those people get loose. It gets weird. True Aggies getting nuts. I mean, Maverick Stadium is not, it's not Ford Field, but it's not the easiest place to play. You call football games.
Yeah.
Give me a frame of reference for like the toughest crowd Isaac has ever played against.
Well, because of the fact that his career is so young, every week that happens. Now, Corner Canyon was a great football team, and they filled up that stadium. But filling up that stadium is 5,000 people.
Right.
This is a totally different thing. They
So
have
this
that
will
many
be new for
students
him.
alone.
Yeah, this will be new for him.
Yeah, road game, first road game. But I will say, I mean, by the way, and I love calling Aggie games. We only had the one so far this year. We had 4 last year, and it is a great environment. It's not a deafening environment, I will tell you that, but it is. The student section is great. I love the cow helmets last week. Did you see those?
I did. That was nice. Nice touch.
I really like. Frank actually put one on for a little pregame. He looked great. He wore it well.
You might as well lean into it at this point. Like I'm told.
Yeah, why not?
I'm told the best restaurant in Logan is an Indian food place inside of a gas station. So if that's the deal, wear the cow helmet.
Just do it.
Yeah,
right.
Just lean into it.
There's no problem with that.
Yeah.
But having said that, and I just don't see Utah State's offense being powerful enough to stay with Utah's defense. Now, we just saw what USC did to them. You and I both stayed up watching that game. Separate homes, by the way.
I didn't get the invite.
No, we had to stay really late because power kept going out.
I make
down
great
there.
s'mores if you want to sleep
Do
over
you?
to watch a
You know,
little
I've
late
never
night
been a-
college
I've
football.
never been a s'more guy.
Well, fine. You can't have my
Yeah,
s'mores then.
sorry. I do like graham crackers with chocolate frosting.
Moving on.
Anyway, and I think in some respects, you might disagree with me on this. Utah's defense is every bit as good as USC's.
I would say it's better than USC.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So I don't see Utah State being able to have a whole lot of success against Utah's. So that doesn't matter anyway. If Isaac can just take care of the football, don't turn it over, which he didn't, which is nice, and maybe manufacture a couple of drives, I think they'll be just fine. Because the defense will probably score again. You pointed that out. Special teams scored again. What does Morgan Scalley always say? Their goal is 4 and a score.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, John Pease line. May you rest in peace. Coach Pease.
Yes.
Yeah.
he was a fun guy.
He was great on the
I love
radio.
that guy.
Yeah, great dude. So, Bryson Barnes is probably getting the start. Haven't heard anything official about the Spencer Petras kid. Anything there that Bryson is familiar with what Morgan wants to do? I don't know.
You hear this all the time about they've got the former quarterback. He'll know all the ins and outs. I don't buy that. I don't. It's like the NFL. Everybody knows everything about every team. There's no surprises. They play every week. The Utes have already played 2 games. Utah State's got film on them. They know what they're doing. And by the way, they ran a couple of fun plays that maybe you didn't expect to see in the playbook that day offensively. So I've never really bought into that whole, the former player is going to help, with that game plan in such a way that they're going to be able to exploit all this stuff. You still have to line up and, go toe to toe. And Utah just will, overmatch them. I know there's probably some Aggie fans that don't like hearing that, but I just think that's the way it is. It doesn't explain away what the heck happened to Notre Dame or what's happened to Florida State twice already. And you brought that up yesterday in 5 Questions with Spence. But I think this is a good opportunity to get Isaac in there, get him some reps. And I'm not trying to say because it's Utah State and they're going to roll over him or anything like that. I just think this is a good matchup for him to learn some more.
Yeah,
that's what I believe.
Utah State coming off a drubbing against USC, but they are coming off a game where they won't be overwhelmed by the talent they see based off of what they just saw, if that makes sense.
Well, okay. I don't know if they can solve it having seen it.
I don't think so either.
Your
but
point's
I do think there's something to understanding what those athletes look like as opposed to coming off, I don't know, a game against an FCS team.
Well, they trailed Robert Morris at the half, which was a little disconcerting, but they ended up running away with that. So, but that's like saying, well, I see that steamroller coming again. I've already seen that. Oh, but it's going to roll over me
it
again.
Still feels the same when it runs
still,
over you. Right. I'm with you. I don't have a lot of anxiety about this game. I just know that every week chaos ensues in college football, which is what makes it awesome.
I agree.
All right, before I set you loose, because we got to get Nate and Jake in here.
Okay.
Advanced Window Products. Yep. I thought Friday night, just like I thought Saturday was a Kyle win for Utah, I thought Friday night was a Kalani win. Offense was bad, right? Turnovers.
Or a Jay Hill win.
Or a Jay Hill win.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should say Morgan Scalley, too. I'm focusing on the head coach.
Yeah, okay.
So, ultimately, Retzlaff has got to be better with the football. 4 fumbles in 6 games, 2 bad picks against SMU. But for a defense last year that was among the worst in the country at pressuring the quarterback and sacking the quarterback, it looks like they might have a much better defense than people are giving them credit for.
Well, and they're going in to take on a Wyoming team that's 0-2, and they lost. Who'd they just lose? Idaho.
Idaho, yeah.
So, and I told Lemma on the air, in fact, I think it was probably in one of our high school games, said if they keep winning games 18-15, Jay Hill's probably going to be gone because he's going to be the MVP coach of the nation. Now, that I'm not saying that's going to happen all through the Big 12, but I just think he's got a full year under his belt. And by the way, Jay, hope you're still getting better. That's amazing what he went through with that heart attack and the doctors that took care of him. We're happy to see him back. But you're right, Kalani win, but definitely Jay Hill win. And it's going to be very interesting to see it. Now, if they can hold SMU at home, what was SMU scoring, like 50 a game in the last 10 home games?
During a 9-game winning streak. Yeah.
What do you think they could do with Wyoming? Who knows? I mean, every game takes on its own personality. You know that. But maybe they do the same thing. Hold them 10, 12 points, 14 points at home. You never know.
All right, what's coming up tonight that will not be near as good as what was on last night?
Well, there's some truth to that. Bear, the head coach of Utah Hockey Club, Andre Tourigny. They call him Bear. I don't know if you know that.
I just was hoping you knew his name. I was going to ask you.
Oh, yeah. You thought I was just saying that because I didn't know.
Yep.
Yeah. No, we know him. And he's going to be our guest tonight. And it's timely because tomorrow they open rookie camp.
Yes, they do.
So we're excited for that. So you'll have that tonight on Talking Sports. We're going to hear from the Aggies, too, by the way, since we were talking about it, on what they're facing when they have to go up against the Utes Saturday.
All right, buddy. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, you got it. Dave Fox, KUT.